Hey kids, it's time to get some SML podcast all up in that.
What's up, everyone? This is the SML Podcast. I'm your host, Joe. We have a fun episode lined up today. Some people to chat with, some reviews to take care of, and we're going to kick things off with my good friend Pernell Vaughan joining the show. Pernell, how are you doing today?
Doing okay, actually, man. Nice cold weather put me in a good slumbery mood last night, which of course also means that I didn't sleep at all. So, I'm running on fumes, actually, but they're good fumes. So.
Yeah, I went outside today and it was not 95 degrees, which was a nice change of pace.
Exactly. Give me more of that. People like to clamor about how much they love summertime. I hate summertime, but I love tail end of summertime because it's like it feels like fall, but you still have some summer events you can attend. It's freaking gorgeous.
Indeed. But you are here for a specific reason today, and that is because we are kicking off the show with an interview. We are welcoming Kevin Simmons and Zack Johnson of Asymmetric. How are you guys doing today?
Great.
Perfectly timed. Perfectly timed.
I think we were each waiting for the other guy to speak first. I'm Zack.
And I'm Kevin.
So, Asymmetric, you're the guys behind Kingdom of Loathing, West of Loathing. You just released West of Loathing, what was it, like a week ago, 2 weeks ago?
About 2 weeks.
Yeah. So for the people who don't know what the game is, and if they somehow missed our review a couple of episodes ago, give us the sales pitch. What is the game? Who are you guys? Why are you on the show? And why is the game so insane?
So West of Loathing is a slapstick comedy stick figure adventure RPG with cowboys. I've forgotten the elevator pitch, but it's more
basically,
or less that.
Yeah, it's like Skyrim with stick figures and beans and big hats.
I just took a drink of water as you said it's like Skyrim with stick figures, and oh my God. I'm amazed I didn't spit that all over my desk.
So we made Kingdom of Loathing starting in like 2003 and have been working on it ever since, which is a very sort of lo-fi browser-based MMORPG. Same art style, just sort of stick figure and line drawing stuff, and the same writing style, which is just very sort of like jokey, pun heavy, very lighthearted. And West of Loathing was our sort of attempt to move into the future by making a game that really looks like it was, from the 90s instead of from the 70s.
And a game that you download instead of just playing in a browser too.
Yeah, that is a big change for us. And this one actually has sound and music and animation and stuff. So it was a lot of new territory for us.
Which it was pretty fantastic as well. It might, you look at screenshots and it might look fairly plain, but when you see it in motion with the shadows and the animation, it's a really smooth looking game.
We were very fortunate to have some very, very talented other people on the team. Our programmer is Victor Thompson, who came from a AAA background, and so I think making something that was this simple allowed him to have a little bit more fun than he's accustomed to, and still maintain the level of quality that you would need for a game with a tens of millions of dollars budget. And Wes Cleveland, our animator, is a guy that we've worked with for a long time, and he just. He's done an amazing job of taking my artwork and making it move in a way that it looks like that's the way it should move. It isn't jarring or weird, and his comic sensibilities are just they're a real secret weapon for us in terms of making the game funny even when it's not speaking.
Yeah, like when we can just say, hey, could you make like 24 ridiculous walks? And he just goes away for a couple of weeks.
I was going to ask about that. How many walks are in that game? Because it's a ridiculous number. I don't think I ever saw it repeat.
It's probably 30-ish, I guess. And then there's a whole nother set for in dark areas that incorporate the lantern that your character carries.
Oh my God, that was ingenious.
Yeah, I think when it opened up the option to have silly walks is when I realized I was in for a pretty special experience. There's nothing like playing an RPG and watching your character like walk around, but instead of walking, he's doing like the dog dragging its ass on the carpet thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was pretty incredible.
No. And that was just 100% Wes. I think I put the item in there, the Walking Stupid book, and then I said, hey, Wes, do a couple of different dumb walk cycles, and then he just made probably the best thing in the game, just completely fabricated.
Yeah, like that's honestly a complete, like as far as like telling anybody about this game, that feels like a number one thing that you have to do. Like check that first bookcase. You have to have silly walking on, because I can't imagine playing the game without it.
Well, I kind of like the fact that it's a thing that you can miss, right? It's a thing that you could play the game and be like, oh, this game's pretty funny, it's all right. And then somebody's like, oh man, but those silly walks, and you'd be like, what are you talking about?
You start sobbing into your hot pocket. It's just that bad. Like, how did I miss out on this awesome thing?
Man, it just gives you a chance to play it again.
That is true.
And it seems by your achievements in the game that you're very much encouraging replaying the game multiple times.
Yeah, I think you can get all of the achievements on like 4 playthroughs.
3 probably if you want.
Well, no, because there's an achievement for beating it with each partner.
Oh, right, all 4. Yeah,
and there are 4. So yeah, one of them is hidden, so we don't really talk about him much. But yeah, we tried to. Over the course of development, the priorities shifted a little bit, but in the beginning, it was very random what areas got exposed to you, like before a lot of the quests went in, and that was also kind of we want different playthroughs of the game to be pretty different from one another, and it ended up like the more kind of friendly we got with location discoveries and stuff, there's a little bit less difference between subsequent playthroughs than I would personally like to see, but there's still like the choice of horse determines a lot of stuff about the random encounters that you get. The choice of partner determines a bunch of dialogue stuff, which is a huge, for somebody who hasn't already read all those jokes, that's a big chunk of new content. And there's quests that you can do differently depending on what class you are and what partner you have with you and what stats you focus on and stuff. So we've definitely tried to maintain the kind of replayability that we would want in a game of that length. I mean, you're not really losing anything if you do a single 6-8 hour playthrough where you poke around. Like, there's stuff you're not going to see, but you, I think, are still getting a satisfactory experience. But same with KOL. Our philosophy is always kind of like, if the player pokes around somewhere, we should put something there to reward them for their curiosity, and doing that just results in these sprawling, unmanageably large projects that we have to deal with.
I appreciate the fact that you put stuff in no matter where you go in the game, because there's so many games out there that you'll be like, oh, here's a hidden area, there's got to be something cool over here, and you get there and it's just like a dead end, and you're like, what the fuck was the point of this?
Yeah, or you go into a dungeon and it's just obviously a copy of a dungeon that you've already been in with different loot in it or whatever. Nobody wants that.
Yeah, those are the worst. It's like we get it. Busy work. Moving on.
Indeed.
But, yeah, I think it's better to cut stuff than it is to add filler or leave stuff in that's not up to the level of quality. If you have 2 half-assed things, it's better to have one whole ass thing that combines both of their properties than to be able to say you have more stuff in your game.
Two cheeks or get out.
Right. There's a I don't know, it's a little more highbrow sort of rationale that Jonathan Blow, when he made Braid, talked about how he didn't want to waste the player's time. He wanted every single interaction to be new and interesting and require novel thought, and not have you repeat things that you've done before unless there was some sort of neat novel twist on it. And I don't think we did anything to that extreme, but I like to think that we're not wasting the player's time throughout the majority of the game.
There was one section of the game that I gotta say you did a really good job of wasting my time, and that was the Ghost Village.
Yeah, that's hopefully that's I think that one edged up a little close to. I don't know. Riff, the guy who designed that thing, he's got just a little bit of Andy Kaufman in him, and every once in a while something will etch up on maybe a little bit too far down that road. But we got
also wrote the Shaggy Dog Cave, if
right?
That,
so
that
that's.
I have not seen that cave.
Oh, good. There's still more things for you to find.
I swear, every time I take I have to backtrack to this village or something, another new area pops up. I'm like, well, do I go here first and then go there? Like, there's still quests that I've started hours ago that I haven't gone back to finish because I just keep getting distracted.
That's great.
Yeah, there's more game than people expect, and I think that's a big factor in why I think it's reviewing so well, is because it's just surprising.
Low expectations.
Well, that's honestly a great point to make, because in today's society of gaming, you have way too many people, even with the rise of indie titles, that seem to look at games based on the graphic quality or how well the cell shading is, or whatever nonsensical jargon you want to throw out there to describe how a game looks. But this game right here
has the best cell shading around.
Yeah. Oh my god, I'm telling you, man, this thing it pushed my PC to its limits.
I needed a new graphics card for it.
But like it definitely came out in a way where when Joe suggested this game, I had never heard of Kingdom of Loathing before. He just said, "Hey, there's this game. It's a stick figure RPG," and I boot up. I'm like, "What the?" Not boot up, but I look at the trailer. I'm like, I'm not getting the appeal here, but I like stick figures, so I'll see what all the hubbub's about. But I got to admit, initially I was like, I'm not expecting too much to come out of this game. Yeah.
Like, even in your review, you were like, I wasn't too sure what to expect going in, but I love this game.
Yes, like, I booted up just looking to okay, just knock out the hour and turn it off and be like, hey, whatever. But no. I was playing it. I had family cover. That was the only reason I stopped playing. I was like, crap, I want to keep going, but I can't. Genuinely funny moments, which also is something that should not be underestimated in games or underappreciated, because a lot of developers like to try to force humor down your throat, but it takes literal skill to actually make the player laugh, whether they want to laugh or not. And there were a number of times in this game I was like, why? I don't get it. Like, I don't know why, but I'm like, I went to the doctor's house, and just every dialogue conversation I had with the doctor just had me in stitches. Like the part where she's like, they're talking about the necromancer, and the doctor's like, who's going to stop him? You? Because I'm not doing it. You think you crazy or something?
Well, why don't you? You're not that old. You could do it. I believe in you.
Yeah, it was so good. Like, I genuinely laughed at more parts in that game than I have in multiple video games over the last few years, and heck, some comedy TV shows for that matter. It's well written.
Well, thank you very much. That's kind of you to say. We our process for developing content is so centered around making each other laugh in meetings that it would be difficult for us to not at least try to. It also, like, it's a kind of joke that, like, if it doesn't work on you, it definitely doesn't work on you. But if it does, then it's pretty easy for us to continue just making puns and dad jokes about more or less everything that you put in front of us, because we've been working on KOL for so many years together that the tone is just kind of like our house style. That's just like, everything we make is just going to be exactly like this. So if you like it, good news, there's a lot of it.
What made you want to go from Kingdom of Loathing to making a Western style RPG?
Well, it gets frustrating at times working on KOL to be bound by sort of mechanical decisions and systems that we made 10 or 12 or 15 years ago. And we wanted an opportunity to, like, sort of start something from zero and just, like, see if we could build a game where we were making all of the decisions about it now instead of when we were in our 20s. And, also, like, the press cares more when you make something new. We sort of wanted to see if the studio, if our careers could have a second act, and making something that's like, hey, here's the thing, you can just buy it and play it. It's not like some esoteric ancient MMORPG that you got to have the wiki open in another tab if you want to play it effectively, because it's become so Byzantine over the years. Byzantine.
I think we also like the Wild West appealed to us as a genre for a lot of reasons. It's got all the same kind of trappings of like a fantasy realm, but with just slightly different tropes. But it's things that haven't been sort of beat down into the ground. I mean, there definitely are Western games, and it seems like they're sort of are more and more as the years go on. But it's not so overwhelmed that it feels tired yet, which I think was appealing to us.
Yeah, and also I think that when you're making a game that's set in a sort of dangerous, reckless area like that, like a genre like that, there is a tendency to want to make it really gritty and grim. And I think that, you know, it doesn't have to be. Like, you could make Blazing Saddles as easily as you could make, you know, Unforgiven if you were making a video game that takes place in the Wild West. So why not do that?
Were you guys, speaking of other Western style games, were you guys relieved when Red Dead got bumped to next year so you don't have that Western competition?
We at least joked that we were relieved about it. I'm curious if it made any difference at all.
I'm thinking you guys scared them off and they didn't want to go up against you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, it's kind of a joke, but you guys have over 700 reviews on Steam and you're overwhelmingly positive. So something is definitely clicking with the audience. And even on Metacritic, you guys are sitting at an 87, which is higher than games like Hollow Knight, Hellblade, Pyre, Prey. Like, people are loving this game.
Yeah, I think that like Kevin said earlier, like keeping people's expectations low is a good way to game the review score metagame. It's also, you know, because we're not trying to do a lot of the stuff that bigger games are trying to do, and because we've been working in this style for so long, like, we were able to kind of constrain our ambitions a little bit to things that we knew how to do and that we knew that we could do. I mean, obviously, the scope exploded like it does in every project, but we also got it done not in, I don't know, it took like a year longer than we expected it to, I guess. But, you know, I don't think anybody thought we knew what we were talking about when we said our initial release projection. So, yeah. And also, you know, I don't know. I think maybe just something about the like lighthearted and cheerful tone of it just puts people in a good mood when it comes time for them to write Steam reviews.
Makes sense.
I think I would have to go with that, because is it just me, or that even now to this day, games typically lean more towards the doom and gloom, you know, everything's catastrophic until the hero shows up sort of style, whereas this game is light and fluffy from the beginning to the end. From the moment your dad hands you his briefcase full of snakes, which was from the very beginning, the game just kind of left you in a place where you knew you were in for a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, I like a gritty, over serious game as much as the next guy. You know, I mean, because it's like, you know, it's fun to run around in like 80s heavy metal album cover art and just hit giant skeletons with giant spiky axes and stuff. You know, but you know, it's not the kind of thing we're gonna make.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to like wear a hippie hat and beat up a demon cow with a cactus. Yep.
And we're probably the only place where you're going to get that.
I think you're also the only game I've ever played that allows you to repeatedly dip your hand into spatoons and bedpans.
That was so great.
What the hell is wrong with you guys?
What's wrong with you? We specifically say don't do this. It's terrible.
That's why I did it. I had to know what was going to happen.
But then I did it and I get rewarded, so why wouldn't I keep doing it? You're the sickos putting rewards in there.
Are we, or is it really you that creates the rewards by by your actions?
Yeah, I mean, you can beat the game. The game is not that hard. You can beat it without all that gear that's in the bottoms of the spatoons, you know?
No, but it's not the game without the spatoon gear.
I mean, I think in the long run, both sides of the equation are kind of fucked up, and it just works out really well.
And also, I'm trying to remember like whether it was like a random event or if it was too much at the beginning, but I still also kind of got a weird kick out of coming across the charred house and finding the altar in the basement.
Oh yeah.
It was just
And I think, I think the tone and the art make it so every once in a while when we do dip into like sort of dark existential horror, evil stuff, that it's still, there's still enough contrast there that it's entertaining and not, it's like comic relief with occasional bits of seriousness in it, as opposed to the other way, which can seem really forced.
Yeah, there's a lot of games out there try injecting some humor into their super serious game, and it just seems to fall flat. But when you take a comedy game and try putting a little bit of seriousness in there, it seems to work a lot better.
Yeah, I think that they're... I don't know. I think you could compare it to something like Borderlands, maybe, where the gameplay itself is hyper violent or whatever, but almost all of the writing is funny and is intended to be funny. But yeah, a lot of people have pointed out in reviews and just in talking to us that there aren't very many games that you could describe as just being comedy games, and I guess that's true. Like I kind of think of the older games like out of Infocom and LucasArts and Sierra as being like primarily these things are funny, but those games are also all from the 80s, so maybe people have a point that they don't do that much anymore. I guess there was that Bard's Tale remake, which was sort of an action RPG where the main character was a smartass, and it was like advertised as being really funny, but I don't know that I believe that it really worked.
Didn't that just get a re-release this week too?
Oh, I don't know.
I think it showed up on the PS4 store this week. I'm not sure if it's on Steam or not, though. But it just, like, out of nowhere, it just showed up.
Well, I think a lot of it just likely stems from, like I mentioned earlier, it's one thing to say, don't get me wrong, all of these things are difficult. I'm not downplaying anything. But it's one thing to say, hey, we're capable of developing a video game. We know how to do X, Y, and Z. Let's put a good game together and people will enjoy it. It's another thing to say, we're going to make a game where the primary focus is to make almost everyone who plays it laugh hysterically, and then hope that your jokes can hit on all those notes. Because one thing to have a stand-up, it's hard enough to be a stand-up comedian standing up in front of a crowd just yelling off a bunch of banter. It's another thing to inject humor into actual gameplay and expect the same results.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing that those are different, because I think both Riff and I did about 75-80% of the writing, and I did the rest. And I think both of us, our worst nightmare would be performing comedy in front of a crowd. So I'm glad that those skill sets are orthogonal. I would have no problem like writing jokes for a TV show or something, and I think Riff would also really enjoy that. But yeah, the giving us, I think that for both of us, it was very important to us to be funny, and that's like kind of the primary way that we kind of work out our insecurities and like try to express our value to other people and like meet women and stuff. But neither of us wants to perform because we're both really shy, and so I think it's natural that we gravitated towards a medium that would give us the opportunity to like make people laugh while we weren't in the room.
There's also something to be said about being able to work your humor at your own pace and sit there and say, hey, I got a joke, I'm going to put it down, and it's locked in. I don't have to remember it in front of a bunch of potentially angry drunks in a large room, So, but trust me, it's no less valued than the stand-up. If anything, it's almost best. Sometimes, in some respects, it's actually better to me. So,
I think a lot of the humor with this game also comes down to like sharing your experience with friends who have played the game. Because even before we started doing this, Pernell and I were chatting a little bit beforehand, and like even just talking about the beginning of the game, like the dude in the bathtub, he's like, "What? Did you like wake the guy up in the bathtub?" I'm like, "No, I drowned that bitch." And I went ruthless right away.
And I ended up handcuffing him to the tub because I was trying to spare everybody while at the same time not drawing attention. But in the end, we both missed the bar of soap, so we couldn't even make the trade in town.
Oh no, I got the soap. I got the soap.
Wait, they gave you the soap. Oh, that's wrong.
I asked him for the soap, and he didn't even wake up. So he gave me the soap, and then I just drown him. I'm like, well, I got what I need out of you.
Yeah, I had to go online for that because after I finished doing everything in town, I was like, choose your partner. I'm like, I'm not leaving until I complete all the trades. So I went on. He was like, how do I get this soap? And the thing was like, oh, you got to wake the guy up. He's awesome, and he'll just give it to you.
Yeah, we were trying to set the expectation early on that there was going to be some actual hard branching stuff that you just wouldn't be able to do everything on a single playthrough. And it's pretty pronounced in that opening area. I mean, especially deciding how to deal with the first group of bad guys sort of changes what your options are for the rest of the game in dealing with just straight up like, these are criminals and this is my approach to how I'm going to handle them. And the ruthless ones, I think, end up being funnier by and large in some cases, and then more boring in some other cases because it just you fight them instead of doing some clever way of trapping them or whatever. But
I like the ruthless option. The one battle I was in, I was supposed to go up against like 5 different bandits or something, and the ruthless option was use dynamite, and I just blew them all up.
Yeah,
which was amazing.
That's a pretty satisfying one. Yeah, because that fight's really hard if you don't do that.
Yeah, that was
you can
pretty
also,
fantastic.
if you go in there honorable, you can just like reason with them and get the stuff they stole back. But who wants to do that?
I don't know. It depends on the writing style. I mean, like, it's satisfying to blow them up, but I can picture it being quite hysterical to actually stare and try to have a conversation. It's like, hey, man, I know you like that spittoon so much, but if you just do this instead. Like, just trying to finagle your way through that dialogue would be hysterical in its own right.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of insanity in the game. Even to the point of like the classes that you could choose in the beginning of the game, where instead of like a melee or warrior, it's cowpuncher.
Oh, and for the record, one of my favorite board games this day and age or party games is a game called Snake Oil. So to come across the option to be a snake oiler in this game was a foregone conclusion. I had to select it. It did not disappoint at all. Those clash options were spectacular.
We've actually done a little bit of like stat tracking on the back end to sort of see what people choose, and Snake Oiler is definitely the most popular choice among the classes.
Oh, my Steam population, you did not disappoint.
It was weird because when in the demo, people overwhelmingly picked the cowpuncher. I don't know what changed over time. We were worried that like, and partly because like we thought, well, the cowpuncher animation is just funnier than the other animations, like right off the bat. Like they're the other ones are cool looking or whatever, but the just dude punching a cow is pretty good.
It is.
And so we were sort of worried that 50% of people were going to choose that one class, but no, it turned out to be like complete upsetting of our expectations. But
could have been just a bunch of people that saw the cowpuncher, laughed at the art or the animation, and said, I bet they expect me to go cowpuncher. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, it could be.
See, I did go cowpuncher because I'm a fan of melee classes. What is it? Bean thrower? Is that
Bean slinger? Yeah.
Bean slinger. That's the mage, I'm assuming.
Yep.
And what is the snake oiler? Because I don't know what that one is.
It's like the thief class, the sort of like ranged dexterity class. Like it's the stats are muscle, mysticality, and moxie, and the snake oiler is the moxie character. It's sort of, we ended up doing as much speech skill stuff for every class. The same amount of speech skill stuff for all of the classes. But I could imagine a world where we focused more on that for the snake oiler, just in the whole kind of charisma approach to things. But like we're so we have so much writing sort of manpower institutionally that it's like, well, no, everyone should talk about the same amount. Everybody should get the option. Everybody should get the option to non-violently handle stuff, not just people who pick the class that you would expect that with.
So you could just intimidate people instead of like trying to smooth them over.
Yeah, and the mysticality class gets a like sort of outsmarting option.
That's a nice twist. I like that. That's really cool.
I'm not going to lie though. I think I would have been pretty happy if I was able to get out of a conversation not only getting the
getting the prison door back, but also selling them some botched cologne at the same time. Like, hey, for your trouble, here's an extra thing before 5 gold. But at the same time, I still was not disappointed with the snake lore one bit. But the other,
they ended up really kind of overpowered in combat too.
Really,
the skill that lets you shoot 3 times in one round just ended up being more powerful than the equivalent melee because it would hit multiple opponents. So yeah, it's just.
Is that something you guys are going to look into nerfing, or do you think, hey, it's in there, might as well let people have fun with it?
You know, it's fine. We're not trying to make a game about hard combat. You can do the kind of hard mode. There's an optional hard mode that you can discover during the prologue, and like in there, you know, for the sake of that, we tried to make sure that the classes were basically balanced in terms of their survivability. But you know, we weren't. It was not that critical that they all be similarly powerful. It's not. There's no multiplayer, you know, so it's not.
Oh, I have to ask since we got you guys on here. I just need to know because I didn't spot it myself. What actually does colorblind mode do?
Yeah, you can't see it unless you're colorblind, so that's why you couldn't.
I put it on. I was telling Joe, I was like, I'm just waiting for it. Something big's gonna happen. I just know it.
Is there an Easter egg tied to that?
There is not.
Oh.
It was just that was just a real last minute joke that I threw in.
It's so ridiculous. I'm surprised there's not like an achievement for that, for just putting that on.
That was hysterical.
We have like there are numbers that have developed significance over the lifetime of KOL, and so it was important to us to have 23 achievements.
It's like the number's like 42.
Yeah, we do 11, 23, and 37 are the big ones that we.
Well, since we're asking weird questions that we don't know the answers to, I know in the prologue there's a section that you can blow open with dynamite. What is behind there?
Kevin, do you want to?
Yeah, it's probably the most disappointing secret in the game.
Really?
It's very, very hard to figure out, and it is there for a singular purpose. There is. I can spoil it for you if you want to know, or I can leave it to you to figure out on your own.
I want to be spoiled. I want to know.
Okay.
My curiosity is getting to me.
So if you try to collect the most meat that you can in the prologue, you're gonna run up against a limit that's like after buying your horse, you're gonna have 1,336 meat left, and there's a hidden achievement to leave Boring Springs with 1,337 meat.
Oh God.
And in that box is the final meat that you need to get there. It requires a lot of very careful resource management and specific choices in the kinds of things that you do leaving your farm and everything. So
because I kind of figured it was going to be tough to get the 3 dynamite to blow that open, and that, you know, when I first started the game, I'm like, there's got to be something big in there. And the more I played the game, I'm like, there's got to be something stupid in there.
Yeah.
You know, basically, there's an achievement in there. That's the answer. So it is both, right? It's big because it's the only way to get it if you care about it, but it is dumb because it's an achievement.
Yeah.
It's just a piece of meat.
Just one single meat. That is fantastic. I'm so happy I know it's in there. That is so ridiculous.
But I've come to expect that at this point, so I'm not complaining. I enjoy it. Give me all the nonsense you can.
How many people have figured out how to get in there? I'm guessing since you have the metrics on what classes people have chosen, I'm guessing you could also see like how many people have gotten that.
Yeah, there's achievement stats built into Steam's backend tools, but I have not actually looked at them recently.
Yeah, I haven't looked at them in the past week or so. I'll have to go back and check. That's a really good question.
I also want to ask, because Joe and I were talking about this earlier too. I think you can tell a lot about a person by the horse they choose at the beginning of the game for their first run. What horse would you guys say is your favorites?
I like the dark horse because I like to avoid combat random encounters.
And I like the Crazy Horse. The Crazy Horse has undergone a few changes to development, which is it's a little sad. Probably up until about a month before release, when you would go from one place to another, the Crazy Horse would travel around the map, sort of in a really wide wandering pattern. It was amazing. But it ended up causing way too many bugs. Unfortunately, we had to cut it relatively late in the process just because it kept like wandering off the map and the game would crash and stuff. It was which is kind of funny in its own right, but we did not want to ship a product.
It's not shippable funny. It's like anecdote, post-release anecdote funny, but not.
So that was how I sort of became enamored of the Crazy Horse, and he also unlocks the sort of funnier, weirder encounters that you won't see otherwise, and I appreciate those being in the game. The horses, the Dark Horse allows you to skip a lot of encounters, but both the Ghost Horse and the Crazy Horse unlock encounters that you can only encounter with them.
The Pale Horse, the Ghost one, is the most popular one by a pretty good margin.
Yeah, surprising.
Yeah. Yeah,
I had to go with the Crazy Horse. When I saw those eyes just wobbling around, I'm like, I need this idiot.
Crazy Horse for days.
The Crazy Horse also has the best sound effects. I don't know.
The best voice acting.
Yeah, exactly.
Did one of you guys do the voice for that?
A bunch of us did.
Yeah, the whole team submitted various horse noises. So yeah.
Just walking up to a horse and hearing it go, nay.
There's not a lot of VO in the game. We're not a studio that's interested in doing a fully voiced kind of thing, but you get your occasional grunts and horse noises, so that's satisfactory.
And also, I think I got an extra bonus, a bit of a laugh from the fact that you guys created a descriptive for every horse from the stableman. But then the normal horse is basically, he's got 4 legs, a mouth, he eats things. What do you want? He's a horse.
2 eyes and a tail included at no charge.
It's so good, and you keep pressing him for more. Like, I genuinely enjoyed all of it. Of course, the description of the Google horse, of the Crazy Horse, also helps sell him too. So.
Yeah, Rift did a great job with those horses. They didn't have, like, in earlier iterations of the game, they had less personality, and we slowly added more and more elaborate interactions to all the things that you did with them over time to get them to where they are now. So yeah, it worked out well.
Yeah, I don't know if either of you two have found the sort of Easter egg where you get to talk to your horses.
No.
Okay. Yeah, that's relatively late game discovery, and also you have to sort of think to try it because it's not an obvious thing. But there is a way to have a conversation with your horse, and all 4 horses have different conversations with you.
Yes.
Oh my god! I now I have to keep going just to see what the conversation is with the Crazy Horse.
I was going to keep going regardless. I got Brain Lord in this game on my plate outside of reviews, and that's good because I'm looking forward to this weird dialogue. Like I said, I genuinely like the game to the point where when I was done reviewing it, usually time is very precious to me these days because I'm getting old, I guess. I don't know. I'm always cooking and cleaning or whatever it is. But I told myself, this is one of the few games I can think of where I liked it, but I'm also coming the heck back to it outside of the review. I have to see how it plays out with at least 2 playthroughs on it.
That's great to hear.
Yes, it's genuinely good. So now I can actually chalk the Crazy Horse and hear what he's thinking about everything.
What other kind of crazy Easter eggs do you guys have hidden in there?
There's a fair number of hidden puzzles that you might not even encounter in your playthroughs. In the military cemetery, there's sort of a sequence of puzzles that you can stumble on that you might enjoy.
There's a lot of weird things that get unlocked in various places if you sort of work out how all of the buried alien technology works.
Yeah.
There's a big long sequence of stuff that you can do there and get some kind of goofy otherworldly stuff going on. You can become the necromancer if you want to. and that changes some things about the way the end game plays out, and gives you some new skills and stuff.
And that interaction is actually that choice becomes very, very meaningful if you happen to have Alice as a partner.
I was about to ask. Please tell me Ashley has a special meaning if you take Alice.
Yeah. She doesn't like that at all. You can become like corrupted with cow energy and end up getting a like sort of dark gift from a bovine lord that you summon. There's a lot of out of the way stuff. And I mean, there's also some stuff that we probably don't think of as being out of the way that maybe you just didn't run into. So it's kind of hard to say. There is just so much crap in there that one person's secret. Yeah, a lot of stuff going on in the circus.
Yeah.
I saw the circus open on my map. I have not been there. I did go to the military cemetery, and when I saw there were 999 different plots you could visit, I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm going to see if there's any information on this one online. So I ended up looking up and saw all the different plots that you could go to and the little side quest that's there. And that was really funny as well. Just the amount of detail that you guys have put into this is insane.
Yeah, recently on Twitter, people have been talking about have you encountered the cook Doug who has like a really good idea for a store?
Oh yeah, I found him.
So if you go and your name is Doug, you get a different interaction, and if you go there and your name is Dog, you get a different interaction. And people have like already found these. I wasn't even sure that like those kind of things would ever be found, and so people have like encountered those and been pleased with how that plays out. Like it's these are not like huge like earth-shattering secrets. They're just like a single line will be different, or like an option will be omitted because it wouldn't make any sense or whatever. But because like people are just kind of continually amazed by like the level of detail that we like the trouble that we went to sort of make things like hang together well.
Yeah, you also have to realize that I think there are a number of games out there where people have tried to make coincidental name choices like that, or name choice that they felt would make something happen in the game, and of course nothing does because developers typically don't look that deep into their product to come up with such absurd things.
Well, I mean, to give those developers the benefit of the doubt, one real significant advantage that we have is that the assets that we have to create and the work that we have to do to get content into this game is really low because of the low sort of fidelity of. I mean, the art is good, acting. But the art is good. There's no VO, so we can just we can rewrite stuff. We can write as many dialogue branches as we want, and it's like largely the way that we work is if somebody thinks of something funny while they're playtesting, they say, hey, wouldn't it be funny if they said this if you went there and your name was this? It's like 5 minutes to add that in. And so like just because we don't have to we don't have to ask a manager for permission to get the pipeline started at the beginning to add a new facial animation to a guy so that he can say a new thing or whatever. Like it's just we really built an engine that plays to our strengths, and our strengths are getting our ideas into the game before we talk ourselves out of them because they're too stupid. So it's really a vehicle for us to be able to make as many dumb jokes as we can in a very small amount of time comparatively. And I think that makes the game huge in the ways that are important to us and the ways that people don't realize are important to them. If they're the kind of person who mostly goes and leaves bad Steam reviews because a game doesn't let you adjust the field of view or whatever.
Can't change the field of view, 1 out of 10, unplayable.
Yeah.
It drops to 59 frames per second, unplayable. So I guess this begs the question, what was too stupid to include in the game?
I don't think there was anything. Every once in a while there would be just a thing where it's like, well, I don't have a really good idea for what this thing is, and I don't have a really good idea for what this thing is, but well, what if we just combined those into one thing, and then that sort of worked out. Down in the south central part, there were supposed to be some bandits that lived in a giant cactus, and there were supposed to be some goblins that stole some jelly beans, and we just didn't really get there with either of them, and ended up hey, what if these were just the same thing? Nobody is going to know. that we're cutting content because the content isn't real yet. So it's more of that. But I mean, we at this point, we've, like I keep saying, we've been doing this for so long that we don't tend to even pitch things that are wildly outside the tone or impractical or not funny. It's so yeah. I wish I had a story. I wish I had a story about a bad joke that didn't make it in there. But all of our jokes are great. I guess that's the take home lesson.
That's a good problem to have, I guess. You're just that damn good. So I was checking out the Steam forums, and I saw someone on there ask whether or not there'd be some kind of controller support added to the game. Has there been any updates on that?
Yeah, we're working on it.
We added a Steam controller profile today, and then and we're gonna hopefully within a week or two we'll have at least the rudiments of real controller support in there.
Yeah, that's been kind of a 1.1 feature because we knew that if the game did okay, we would be considering console ports,
which was my next question.
Yeah, so we have a meeting with Nintendo at PAX, and I think we're talking to some PlayStation people too. So it's definitely on the table, and it's definitely a thing that we can say with relative confidence that yes, we're going to get this game on the Switch and hopefully the PS4 by the end of the year.
And what about Xbox? Because I'm an Xbox fan. I'm a console guy. I love my Xbox One.
That's the one thing that none of us know anything about or know anybody who's done it really that we've talked to. But I think there's probably not that much more involved in that relative to PS4, and I think you can self-publish on either of them. So
it's just the certification process for each of the big publishers is the big headache. We're definitely open to Xbox. It's just a question of will we have time to do it before anything else. I think we're probably targeting Switch first, and then PlayStation, and then Xbox.
I think Switch is the most natural fit for the game.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
and also we're all old, so we all have a lot more sort of nostalgic affinity for Nintendo. So I think I would be the most excited to see something that I made on a Nintendo platform of all of them.
And that handheld playability is honestly a huge factor for me on something like this too. So
yeah, having access to the touch screen, because whatever we do with controller support, it's going to be somewhat compromised because we haven't been playing it internally that way for 2 years, right? So it's just not going to be as polished as the keyboard and mouse or tap to move. We've been demoing it on iOS tablets, so that stuff all works pretty well, but we just it's not a thing that's really designed from the ground up to work with a controller the way that it is to work with the other control schemes. So the Switch is nice also because if you're playing it on the tablet mode, you can just tap to move.
Are you looking at any other PC storefronts?
Yeah, we're probably going to go on to Itch in a month or two, and we're going to see about GOG also.
Because I was wondering if you looked into the Xbox One platform, if getting part of that Play Anywhere program with the Windows 10 store as well, if that would be an option.
Yeah, I don't know. That might make it a little easier actually.
And it would seem like a good option for potential buyers that they could get it on one platform and also get it on Windows 10 or vice versa.
Yeah, I don't know anybody who uses that store though. I think it's a little. As somebody without an Xbox, maybe I'm just the wrong demographic for it. But it seems I guess a little weird to me to buy a PC game not on Steam. But I guess that's just the Valve's market manipulation working on me.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why Microsoft has been doing that Play Anywhere program, so that if someone buys something on their console, they'll have it waiting for them on their PC as well. It won't be on Steam, but it'll be there. They can still play it on their computer. Yeah. So I know a lot of people have been buying stuff. It's like, well, I don't own an Xbox, but I kind of want to play Forza Horizon 3. It's like, oh, well, I could just get on the Windows 10 store, and then if I do get an Xbox, I'll have it there as well.
No, that's cool. I didn't realize that was a thing just as a PC user. So, yeah. They need to up their marketing visibility game, I guess. Now, what they would do is they would make a pop-up that you can't dismiss that comes up as a part of a Windows 10 update that demands that you go buy Forza. That would just make me angry. We might end up talking to some Microsoft people too when we're up in Seattle next week. So there's certainly nothing is off the table.
Well, I'll cross my fingers as a self-professed Xbox fan. I will keep my fingers crossed on that.
All right.
Man.
What would you say is actually next for this line of games too, if there is a next?
We're going to do some DLC before the end of the year. We're already kind of in the planning stages on that. I don't know. We spent so much of the effort of making this game was spent making the engine really flexible and was really done with an eye towards making multiple games in the engine. And so, we sort of know we've got a pretty good idea of what the next couple games are about. So, that's probably our next 4 years in the bag.
Are you going to stick with the RPG format, or are you going to try jumping genres a bit?
I think we probably stick to the RPG format because that's just kind of what we all like to make.
Not sure if we would see like the anime style dating sim of loathing.
I have thought about that because that is another genre that really plays to our strengths. Although, we were all kind of agreed in the beginning, what this game does not need is a bunch of player romance mini game crap. That to me is always just the dumbest part of a BioWare game. We might lampshade it a little bit, but yeah, I don't know. I would have a really hard, having never played a single visual novel dating sim, I would have a really hard time making one, I think. Riff is into those what is that series? The 999.
Oh, the Zero Escape games.
Yeah, Riff. I know Riff really likes those, and so the idea of a visual novel with some puzzle elements and stuff that's a thing I could imagine us making someday. But yeah, I think the Persona games are more RPG, right? I've never played any of those either. I'm not really much of a console gamer.
Persona is pretty much an RPG, but they had the side component of here are preset storylines for characters, but you get some dialogue choices which determine whether you pass or fail, essentially. So,
and then even Persona's been branching out into different genres with their fighting game, and then they have a rhythm game. So could we see Rhythm of Loathing?
Yeah, why not?
Dance of Loathing.
Although, the little bit of procedural audio stuff that we did with this for those the musicians that you can sort of rescue out in the world and send back to the stage that all kind of play the 12-bar blues that's programmatically generated. That's doing sound stuff is harder than it looks. So.
I think I only got one of the musicians back with the jaw harp.
Oh yeah. That was me. I played the jaw harp on that.
Oh, nice.
Hidden talent revealed.
Yep. But yeah, there's five of them that you can send back there, and they all everything sounds like they're playing music in various configurations, but just dealing with the timing and stuff. A rhythm game would be difficult. I don't think I've ever given the developers enough credit for those, just making them work right at all.
If you guys did some kind of rhythm game, you would have to use the most obscure peripheral possible, just a rhythm game based around the DJ Hero turntable, something ridiculous.
Yeah, or make sure that the next game is playable entirely with those Donkey Kong bongo drums from the Nintendo 64.
That would be amazing.
Yeah,
play entirely on a dance mat or something.
Yeah, or an old that power pad thing from that track and field NES game, the 4x4 grid of buttons that you stomp on.
If you're gonna go with the crazy NES peripheral, you're gonna have to get there was a full-size keyboard for a piano teaching game on the NES.
Yeah, Miracle piano teaching system.
That's the peripheral to use.
Yeah, there you go.
And then Rob the Robot.
Right. I still have one of those in my garage. We could figure out how to make that work. Although I think he doesn't work with flat screen TVs, does he?
I don't know.
I think I want to say that Rob and the light gun just don't work unless you're actually playing on a CRT TV.
Well, then I guess it's Power Glove.
Yeah, Power Glove. That's
Power Glove and the U-Force.
But I do still have my Rob, but unfortunately he is controllerless. He just sits there with his arms out, reaching for something that will never show up.
He's better as a relic of an interesting but failed experiment, I think.
Yeah, and a parent character in Smash Brothers for some reason, which it's like, here's a character for a bunch of people who have no clue who he is, but I did, and I appreciated him.
I was so excited when they announced him for Smash Brothers too. I'm like, are you fucking Rob the Robot? That's amazing!
And he became one of my mains too. He's freaking awesome.
How does he stack up against Mr. Game & Watch?
Honestly, I use them both. It's like, I like the absurd characters quite a bit, and those two are both nostalgic and insanely absurd. He flips sausages from a pan. I mean, it's just insane. It's a fantastic insertion to a game, a fighting game, no less so. But yeah, honestly, at this point, if you do put the power pad as a means of playing one of your future games, you got to have some kind of wannabe cheetah unlockable too, just for good measure. You can call him Puma or something.
This is kind of feeding into what I was saying earlier about it, how I feel like Nintendo is kind of the natural like first port for us, just because their sort of silliness and like relative family friendliness that we're not shooting for like making a kids game, but we're shooting for making something that's not going to be like offensive to a parent. The idea of their kid playing it, like there's plenty of like ribald jokes, but you got to know what the joke is to even know that there's anything double entendre wise going on there. And so we generally shoot for like, this should be safe to play with like your 8-year-old, but it should entertain both of you.
Yeah.
And I think Nintendo is just like tonally the right fit in a way that just kind of makes me feel a little more simpatico with them than a Gears of War or a God of War on either of the other sides.
Very true. I mean, if you're going to go with Nintendo, you could always go with their original rival and look into like a Dreamcast port, since people still make Dreamcast games these days.
It's true. Or Sega Master System.
There you go. Do you think the game would run on a Master System?
I don't.
Probably not. A friend of ours just made a NES cart. I don't know if you've had a chance to play what is that called, Zach?
Super Russian Roulette.
Yes, Super Russian Roulette.
It's just this. It's a cowboy game that he actually manufactured on NES cartridges, and I don't know if he's selling them or if there was like a Kickstarter for it or whatever. But he demos it at a lot of shows. It's pretty good. It's just like a kind of a light gun. It's a funny light gun kind of drinking game.
I gotta look this one up.
It's great. I think you will, if you like our game, you will totally dig the humor in that as well.
I'll have to check that out. That sounds fun.
Super Russian Roulette. Powered up.
Oh my god! It uses the zapper.
Yeah.
It does.
No, it's good, and it just runs on runs on original Nintendo hardware too. Like that Andy Raitano,
physical
the guy that made
cartridge.
that, he's like, he's also done this crazy thing where he's built a machine that lets you access the RAM of a Nintendo while it's being played. So he does a thing where like one person's playing Contra and another person has a control panel where they can like adjust gravity and like change the screen resolution and just randomly mess with features of the game world while the other person's trying to play. And it's so good. It makes these old games into like this crazy party game experience. He's a smart dude.
That's amazing.
Sounds like Nintendo should be knocking on his door for some official products for that kind of knowledge. Shoot. Because we had like NES Remix already, but this sounds like it'd be. I'd actually would pay money to play that kind of style of a game on a full game developed like that.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it shows that like if you ever go to like Fantastic Arcade in Austin, you can usually play that stuff there, and it just various video game conferences and conventions.
Indiecade in LA maybe, or Indiecade East in New York. Those kinds of venues.
It's fun.
I'm
There's
just
a real,
sitting
there's
here
a kind
looking up Super Russian Roulette that you could get it on thisiswhyimbroke.com for $55, and I might have to do this.
Well, if you do, I'm coming up to check it out.
It's great. He did it up. I got a copy of it recently, and it's like in an original Nintendo box with all the stuff in there, like exactly like you've opened a game when you were a kid.
So it allows me to join the Superpower Club?
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be written up in the next issue of the Nintendo Fun Club newsletter for sure.
Yes.
Man, I remember getting the Fun Club newsletter, and then I was so pissed when my mom wouldn't like subscribe to Nintendo Power and do the upgrade when they did that. She's like, "Oh, you don't need this dragon game. There's no reason to get that. Like a free game. A free game. Why would you pass up a free game with a magazine?" What I'm saying is my mom was terrible to me.
Yeah,
no,
I
love my mom.
I did get the upgrade to the subscription, so I guess my parents actually loved me.
There it is.
I don't know the feeling of being loved. That's why I do this show, to get some form of affection in life.
Someday you hope to get that Nintendo Power upgrade that you never received.
So since you're looking to get this on the Switch, would you guys consider doing a physical release for it, to have that physical Nintendo cartridge?
I don't know.
That would be so great, but I don't think that we're going to have that kind of sales numbers to justify that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I could see something like, I don't know, you know how like Gone Home did that thing where they released a copy of the game in a box? I could see doing some like small run boutique kind of thing like that, but I don't think we're going to be able to do things at the scale of being able to like press discs in meaningful quantity.
I was about to say, limited run games is shaking down quite a few people just by putting that logo on the corner of the box.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, especially if you're going for PlayStation platform, they pretty much all their releases are on PS4 and Vita. So, yeah,
we haven't made anything physical in a long time. We used to sell some weird stuff through the KOL merch store. It might be fun to do some work with our hands again, but yeah, too many other things to take care of first. Well,
we'll just put out there, on just as a humorous note, if it does somehow make it to a actual physical box, I can see myself grabbing it just by virtue of wanting to see what the bullet points on the back of the box would be. It would be hysterical.
The game itself is hysterical, and I feel bad because I know we've been chatting for an hour now, and I know you guys don't have too much time left. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about before we wrap it up?
Boy, I don't think so. I'm content to just just sort of shoot the shit about our process and stuff the way we have been doing. So this we're not big self promoters. So thankfully you've done such a good job of it.
Yeah, we've been really I don't know, happy and overwhelmed with sort of the response. We did not expect it to sell as well as it has, and it's been really gratifying that people have played it and enjoyed it and been so effusive with their praise. So we're really happy about that.
Yeah.
I just had a thought, honestly. It's pretty much off kilter, but since we were talking about old Nintendo and nostalgia titles earlier, what would you say is your most either prized or influential video game experience that you've had?
Gosh. As far as, I think Kevin and I have basically the exact same list of influences for West of Loathing. So I can kind of, I guess, talk about some stuff that wasn't specifically that, but like playing Loom as a kid was really important to me for reasons that I might not really be able to articulate, but just the fact that it was just kind of like, it was a game that was just kind of warm, and it wasn't about killing stuff, and it was clever, and it made the player feel clever. That was a big kind of watershed for me as a kid.
I think for me, Star Control 2, like the way that you could explore this massive universe and the things that you did actually had an impact on how the game played out in a really interesting and meaningful way, and the variety of different kinds of interactions that you would have, and some of them were super funny and some of them were super dark. Like the Toys for Bob folks had a tremendous way with tone changes in writing. It was just that phenomenal, and we've always wanted to like revisit that, and maybe sort of I can imagine us in a couple years trying to do some sort of spiritual successor to that game, because that's very, very key for us. I think part of what we were trying to make with West of Loathing was something in the vein of like Hero's Quest, which was a game that both Zack and I played as a kid and really, really liked. And the way that was, you could play 3 different classes, and you'd have puzzles that you'd encounter, and they'd have multiple different solutions based on what class you were or things that you learned in the game. Like that, you can see a little bit of that DNA in West of Loathing for sure.
And Paper Mario for me was a big influence on the actual structure of this game, and kind of, and in a lot of ways the way it looks, I guess. Although that was Paper Mario was a big influence on Kingdom of Loathing, I think, just as the kind of like lighthearted RPG with like cooking that involved combining 2 items together, and funny dialogue being kind of the center point of it.
I'm glad to hear that, actually, because that's another game that I remember buying for the first time and not expecting it to be as funny as it was. And even stuff that I'm not even sure they intended for you to laugh at so much. Like, I played every Paper Mario game, and I still think my favorite joke is just the fact that one mayor, Turtle Mayor, just calls Mario Murphy all the time.
Yep, that's pretty good.
I say it in this old turtle man voice whenever he speaks. Like, come on, Murphy! Like, it's perfect. It's just perfect, and so simple though.
Yeah, I think that was I forget the name of the localization team that worked at Nintendo that kind of got their start with that. But you can really tell when they've worked on something. They've done some of the Mario and Luigi games and that kind of stuff. Like, it's localized in a way that is so much more caring than just a translation. It's like, oh, well, this is funny in Japanese, we should make it funny in English, as opposed to just making it literally whatever they said, which, I have a feeling that a lot of stuff, when it gets directly translated from Japanese to English with no sort of nuance or editorial control added to it, you end up with, okay, this is kind of boring, and he said the same thing 3 times in a row, because you just don't have the cultural context for whatever was supposed to be happening in that dialogue. And God, what is the name of that localization shop? It's like something Treehouse.
The
Treehouse, yeah. I just think they do a phenomenal job of like taking stuff that is funny in Japanese and making it funny in English for different but related reasons.
See, I like that you would even say that, because that's come up a bit. That concept has come up a lot in dialogue that I've had, because being an old head in games, I deal with a lot of communities that talk about old RPGs and stuff like that. And I'm sure you probably are familiar with like Working Designs from back in the day. And people would give them a lot of flack for doing exactly what you just said, which was, they'll take a game that has a specific type of dialogue to it, and when it comes to the States, they figure either we could just have the guy say these very simple statements, or we can jazz them up and just make them funny, because why not, And I don't know, I definitely feel a sense of appreciation for a company that can actually go the extra mile to add an additional level of humor to a game to make it stand out more.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would never have made it through Paper Mario if it hadn't been funny.
It goes to show that not all RPGs need to be hyper serious, mature storylines with the world is in peril and a silent protagonist is out there like trying to recruit and save the world from devastating evil. Like, you could just make a fun RPG and have fun and laugh.
Only a 16-year-old war veteran can save the day.
School is just a bit too rough.
I seriously never understood that trope. Never got it. But, yeah, they had their reasons. But, yeah, I think I have to agree with that one, too. Paper Mario needed that humor for it to really thrive. Though,
saving the world when you're 17 years old. I didn't even have a license when I was 17 years old.
That's what prevented you from saving the world, Joe.
I guess so. I tried so hard.
I didn't save it until I was 19, so it's okay. Everybody matures at their own
pace. Took time. Just gotta wait for the right crisis to show up.
Oh, man. Well, I know, like I said, I know you guys didn't have too much time, so I guess we could wrap it up here. Thank you both so much for coming on the show and chatting with us. Please do come back on if there's any news about a console release or DLC release. You guys have been amazing to chat with.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for having us.
It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for having us.
We're going to take a quick break on the show. We're going to play a little bit of music, come back. We have plenty more show to go, lots more to take care of. Pernell, I'm sure you'll be back as well. Do you guys have any final words to wrap this up?
I don't think so. If you haven't already played West of Loathing, head on over to Steam and buy a copy and have some fun.
And we'll be at PAX this coming weekend, so maybe come see us. We'll be in both the Indie Mega booth and up in the PAX 10.
Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for hanging around. We do have another interview coming up shortly, but before then, we got to sandwich a couple of reviews into this episode, right? And we're going to kick things off with the not presently floating away Chris Taylor. Chris, how are you doing today?
Actually, I'm reporting to you from a raft in the middle of what used to be I-35. No, I'm just kidding.
How bad is the weather down there? Because you're in Texas, and we all know that Hurricane Harvey? Harvey's
humongous adventure
is wrecking the shit out of Texas right now. So how's your area?
I'm in Austin, and we're right at the tippity tip of it, so it's actually not too bad. It's just been constant rain and wind, but Houston is more or less underwater right now, and lots of the coast is just really suffering. So if any of you charitable sorts out there can find any way to donate to some of the rescue causes to Houston and the coast, that would be great. Don't worry about me, though. I'm actually fine. I've been playing Kirby's Dream Land 3 all day. And I beat Gradius 3.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, that was tough.
But another game that you've been playing is called Elminage Original, developed by Starfish, published by Ninja Games Japan, which is an amazing name.
I love it.
This one released August 10th on the Nintendo 3DS for $19.99. The 5 rings that protect the world have been scattered after 5 sorceresses attempted to release the Demon King. They who can find the 5 rings and restore the barrier on the Dragon's Fang shall be richly rewarded. Today, many adventurers pass through the gates of Trangelda, their true motives hidden within their hearts. Your very own epic adventure awaits you. Chris, how is your epic adventure?
Oh, it's so epic. You would not believe the amount of epicness.
Now, where does epic adventure fall in the Bill and Ted scale? Is it like above excellent adventure? Is it in between there and bogus journey? Like what's the ranking?
I would say it's an excellent journey.
Nice.
So not a bogus adventure.
Might be the dumbest question I ever opened with. So yeah, tell us about Elminage.
Okay, so Elminage, and I caught this one like as soon as it hit the coming soon part of the 3DS shop, and like I really I asked for this one because
you were excited about this one.
Yeah, I was really excited because ever since I was a kid, I've always loved first-person RPGs, and I really, really dig the wizardry style of games, which I currently experience through the Etrian Odyssey series, which is one of my favorite RPG series. Like, I'd place it probably below Dragon Quest, but above Final Fantasy is what I think of Etrian Odyssey. So, but I know that Etrian Odyssey has a kind of a new spin on the old formula. It's a little more forgiving and it makes a little bit more sense. Elminage, I'm happy to report, is nothing like that. It is basically a wizardry game. It does not make any sense to people who are not familiar with wizardry. So basically, to kind of put it in a context, it's sort of like because wizardry is a series that predates a lot of popular RPG series. Like, it predates graphics. It started as a text adventure. So the way you would create characters is you would name them and choose their race and choose their age and their occupation, and then you would roll for bonus stats. And this game lets you do that. And in fact, you can re-roll for bonus stats until you get a huge amount of bonus. Now, the amount of bonus could be anywhere between 1 point and 64 points. And it's modified by age, so the older your character is, the higher they're likely to roll. So for that reason, one of the first characters I created is Bob Dole at 93 years old. He is a Republican priest. The game actually gives you the option to modify their class just with an extra word, just for your own sake. So I literally named him a Republican cleric. And that's the way I play these D&D style games. I love to come up with the crazy names. I'll give those to you when I'm done talking about it.
Nice.
But So you roll all your characters up. You have to select their alignment, and I'm sorry to say that you have to be evil if you want to have ninjas. That's a fact of life. So there's your first tier of classes that you can have, like your regular fighter, mage, cleric, and such. There's a second tier of like characters that kind of combine two aspects. Oh, the thief class, of course, that's another one. So you got like your hunters, bishops, and which a bishop is just a mage with a cleric, and things like that. And then you have like your top tier, which are like samurais, lords, and the holy grail of wizardry games, the ninja, which is a combination fighter and thief. And they also, I think, learn black magic. I'm not too sure. So I spent a long time rolling for a ninja to get one, because if you gain stats throughout the normal game, you can actually change your job later, but it resets a lot of things. So it's kind of best to just put in the legwork and roll a good character immediately. And so I got a ninja, and I named him Ninja Ninjerson. And he's an evil ninja. He's a modified sneaky ninja, and his nickname is That Dude. So,
Ninja Ninjerson. Jesus.
Yes. Oh no, Ninja Mick Ninjerson. Actually, that's right. I added the Mick because he looks a little bit Scottish. So anyway, so you roll your characters and you talk to your king guy, and he gives you some money and like tells you to go infiltrate this dungeon. And so the first dungeon serves as kind of a tutorial to the whole thing, which is actually pretty generous for a game like this. Because it's got like a healing fountain and all this other stuff, signs pointing you in the right direction, and a boss that like actually asks you politely if you want to fight him before he attacks you. And you start the game, and no matter what stats you've rolled, no matter what classes you have, like when you're at level 1, you've got 8 HP and you're probably going to die. So it's very much a system of sort of flying by the seat of your pants, just trying to survive for the first few levels. And here's where we're going to lose some traditional RPG fans. So you gain levels, and once the bar like goes up to the end, that is not where you gain the level. That's where you gain. That's where you have enough experience to gain a level. So you could actually just keep going in the current level you're in. But the next time you go to an inn, and you rest that character, which you can in an inn, you can actually choose to rest an individual character, so you don't run out of money.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually that's a wizardry thing too. And then your character gains a level, and then the rolls happen. That is to say, the same dice roll that determined like your bonus stats and things like that is now being applied to your level. So, like most of the time, you're going to end up with only 1 HP gain, and you might gain like the hard limit is 1 stat, like 1 point to any stat. So you might gain like a point on a couple of stats. You might also lose a couple of points. Let's say a point on a couple of stats. And at that point, you want to reset and try and re-roll. So you essentially have to sit there and get into a restart loop every time you gain a level if you want to have the best stats. So that definitely seems like a bad thing, but to anybody who plays like these kind of games, like from the old school, it's something we're sort of used to. Wizardry's like that. Some of the advanced Dungeons and Dragons games are like that. The video game versions. So that's like one thing. But if you have the patience, you can either build a really good character, or you can rely on things like strategies, like combining debuffs and using stat magic like really cleverly to put the enemy to sleep or poison them. Like if you have a hunter class, it's great because you can if you poison an enemy, every time they take poison damage, the archer shoots them regardless of turn.
Oh wow,
it's the damnedest thing, but it's so fun. So once you figure all that stuff out, like I said, if you're trying to play this where you have optimal characters, you're gonna wind up resetting a whole bunch of times. So you kind of have to stick with that. But once you get past that first dungeon and the second dungeon opens up, then it all hits the fan, because enemies start becoming gigantic. Like, they're taking up 2 full screens.
Oh, wow.
And they start coming at you in rows. So you have to defeat the first row before the second row can even get to you, although you can get your archer to, shoot arrows into the back rows while you're working on the front rows. It's just, it gets insane. Which is something that is more of a now thing than a thing you would have seen back then. So there really are some modern challenges that they're using an old system to deploy. So that was really cool to me. And dice rolls also factor into things like if you have a bishop in your party, which I mentioned before, then you can use that bishop to appraise all of your items for free. You can either pay the shop to do it or have your bishop do it for free in a bar. For whatever reason, they can only do it in a bar. And there's actually a chance that in appraising the item, you'll accidentally touch it wrong and lose your ability to appraise items for a long time. Or, you'll lose the item, or it'll be cursed and you'll get cursed and have to spend a lot of money. There's so many little things that dice rolls tend to completely screw up for you if you're not careful.
So your whole game is at the mercy of the rolls.
Yes. And it is a very unapologetic game in that way. But I will say that I've been really floored by the enemies, the art design. The music is really great. I especially love the forest music, which is the second dungeon you're likely to see. And it's totally open-ended. You're just going after, like I said, the 5 rings, which are just basic MacGuffins. And and while you can do it in whatever order you want, there's actually a monster rating at the beginning of every stage where it tells you on a scale of 1 to 5 monster heads how much hell you're about to go through. And each of those dungeons, at least for the first couple of dungeons I noticed, have multiple areas. So they're all multi-layered dungeons. You have to clear a few dungeons before you can even go and get to the second floor of the tutorial dungeon that you just started in. So it looks like this is a really long game. And that's what I like about it, because, you spend all that time building up characters, you really want a good adventure.
So it is a huge, open-ended, old-school dungeon-crawling RPG that lets you name your characters Bob Dole.
Yes, and in fact, while I've still got maybe 2 more minutes, I'll go ahead and go through the list for you if you want me to do that.
Let's hear the names.
All right. Let's see. Sorry, I gotta set it up here.
Unprepared.
I have an elven broody summoner named Ted Gizmo Duck. His nickname is Teddy Duck. I started to try and create a ninja called Hanzo, and I split up between his full name and his nickname, My Life is Difficult and Lonely. That's that's an Arrow Wings 2 reference. Let's see, who else have I got here? Got my characters here. Got my human lord, who is Julius Bedwetter, also known as Lord Newpants.
Oh, God.
He is a male human, 43-year-old hesitant lord. I have my 34-year-old...
Hesitant lord.
Yes. I wrote hesitant. Then I have my 34-year-old male dragon newt named Flint Mancave. I nicknamed him Flinty Poo, which is a Mother 3 reference. He is a breathy samurai, because he has a skill called breath.
Breathy samurai.
Yes. I have a 93-year-old human male, as I said, named Bob Dole, also known as Mr. President. And the weird thing is, he rolled such high HP gains. He's actually one of my leaders in terms of being able to take damage. That's really odd for a cleric. Anyway, so then I've got my this introduces a race I'd never heard of called Hotlet. It appears to be a diminutive race, kind of like a halfling. They call them Hotlets. I don't know. So I've got a 26-year-old female Hotlet named Tilda Dunkaroos, also known as the Dunkmeister. She is a nostalgic thief.
I don't know. Hotlets, I would have probably named Margaret O'Houlihan from MASH. Hot Lips, the Hotlet.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And then I have a female werebeast, 16 years old. She is a bit put-out hunter, and her name is Trisha Ceratops, also known as Trish, also known as Squirrel. Because she looks like a cat. I thought that was funny.
Oh, God.
And then, of course, I have Ron Selfie Stick, which is a female human bishop. And she is, I think she's in her 30s or something. I don't remember. I also named her Ron the Girl.
Oh, God.
And that's my team so far.
That's a big party.
Yeah, you get 6 members at a time. A couple of my characters are evil characters that I rolled, and I haven't yet started a campaign with the evil team. Right now, I've just got my good neutral team. 3 of my current characters are neutral, so they can still work with the evil guys. So it's just kind of a thing that I have tucked into my pocket just in case I need it.
Nice. So I guess the big question is $20. What's your verdict on this?
Oh yeah, $20 definitely get it. I mean, the Elminage series, in doing some reading, I found out has been around for about a little over 10 years, it looks like, or maybe a little less than 10 years, and it's been exclusively in Japan except for Original, which came out first on the PSP and then on the 3DS. So this is a well-seasoned series. It definitely doesn't have like much of an indie vibe. Like I would have expected this to come out on a cartridge because it's seriously like a good full game. And any fan of an old school first-person dungeon crawler RPG will love this. Anybody expecting something easy with a lot of story should probably look elsewhere.
Sounds good. Well, Chris, thanks so much for covering this one, and try to stay dry.
Oh, yeah, will do. Thank you for having me.
All right, next up, we have a handful of games to talk about with our good friend Pernell Vaughan. Pernell, how are you doing today?
Good evening. Terrible decorating in my house or internal organization of said house. It's kind of kills my entire evening. Doesn't help when you're half asleep while you're trying to do it. I need someone here that understands symmetry and feng shui, as they call it. Otherwise,
yeah,
just going to teach us some shit. Yeah, exactly. Same with me and most of my friends. It's just like, where do you want to put that table? On the floor. Oh, whatever. That lamp, wherever it shines at, just hang it up. Put it in an outlet or something. I don't give a shit. Like, well, the interior design here is terrible. It's totally screaming, I don't know what the fuck I want motif. And that's okay. How about yourself?
I was going to say, hopefully you're awake enough to handle some reviews.
I think I can handle it. I think I'll be okay. But I make no promises.
Well, we'll do what we can, and we're going to kick things off with Mononoke Forest, developed by cribee, published by GAMEDO. It released July 20th on the Nintendo 3DS for $3.99. Mononoke Forest is a heartwarming simulation game where you build up a village of adorable Mononoke characters and use their mysterious power to bring back a village back to life. Pair and toss Mononoke at the land to spread their energy and develop the village of your dreams. Pernell, what the hell is Mononoke Forest?
A game that I expected to think was terrible, and yet somehow I was incorrect. You was like, hey, you want to do this review? And I'm like, whatever. So I took it, and I booted it up. I finally had some time to boot it up before, in order to do the review. And I started it, and I kept playing. Like, I honestly, genuinely felt compelled to keep going on this game. I was making a few blunders which made me lose more time than I probably should have, but I think it was just me being blind. So, just to get into the specifics of the game, the story's stupid. I don't even care about it. It's you start out with some little cuddly critters called Mononoke talking to a really fat one who loves sleeping. They walk out to get him food, and a bee monster shows up and says, "Go away!" And he goes away, and then the little tiny guys get sad, and they try to throw themselves at the monster, and they can't do it. So the monster leaves, another weird critter shows up, and then the game begins, which is all that matters. And the actual game is surprising, like you need to love the environment game, and that's what this is. So premise is you're in a dilapidated town that has trash everywhere and dead trees and literal garbage floating in the water. and you are tasked with fulfilling the needs of the townspeople to bring the town back to life. And you do this by taking Mononoke types, combining them, and then flicking them at the map to make things happen. What the fuck are you talking about? You just said. Okay. So, you have a map, like a world map, right? And different areas of the town are just littered with like, you know, barren land or whatever. So, you choose a spot on the map, and then you create a loadout Mononoke team, and they consist of different types, such as the Beast Mononoke type, which I honestly have barely even bothered with. There's the Fern Mononoke type, and there's there's like a tree stump, and a blue flower, and a water lily. So
purple horseshoes.
Yeah, pretty much. It may as well be a bunch of goddamn Lucky Charms, but you basically take two of the different ones, and you combine them. And each combination creates a different environmental effect. So let's say, for example, you combine two Fern Mononoke to clear out trash. So combine the two, then you flick them at a spot on the map that has trash on it, and the trash goes away. And there's these little, like, weird bud things whose name eludes me, like Tokanokes or some dumb shit. And you add those to the combination, about two of them, like one per Mononoke. So 2 for a combination, or if you go for a 3Z combo, you can have you can have 3 of them. And when you launch that up, it increases the range of effect. So if you want to clear a 3x3 grid of trash, you combine 2 Fern Mononoke and 2 Gobbledygook Pussy Willows, whatever the fuck they're called, and you throw them up, and they clear the environment out. So you're probably like, okay, it sounds dumb, but I'm going to tell you, it was addictive. I kept playing it. I wanted to keep going because the townspeople will come at you and say, you know, I really missed trees. I want trees to come back. So then you're tasked with clearing the trash out of a specific area that they want it cleared from, then planting the grass by combining a bug Mononoke and a grass Mononoke. Then you have to put the trees down by combining a flower Mononoke and a tree Mononoke, and you do it multiple times, and then there's trees up and an old lady smiling and shit, and everybody's happy. It's so odd. It's a strangely fulfilling thing. And while this is all going on, there's also like other Mononoke floating across the screen while you're aiming, and you want to whack them with launched Mononoke to send them down to the bottom and potentially recruit them to expand your Mononoke army. Because there are a lot of them. You can hold up to 21 at a time. You can create 5 teams, and they have different stats, which I genuinely have no clue what they do. There's a power stat, a popularity stat, and a stamina stat. I don't know what they do. Don't even ask. I was barely paying attention to them, and the game didn't explain it, at least not as far as I had gotten. So I was just basically making combinations. I'm clearing them out. I was going around the village and putting grass plots all over the place. I started growing trees, and I was getting to the point where I was trying to find a water sprite, and this is where I lost some of my time at, which is that the game at one point says, look around the map to see if you can find Mononoke. And I'm thinking, okay, I'll scroll the map, because you're able to scroll the map before you go into an evening mission, which is when all the flicking happens. The flick. Anyway, so at this point, I'm like, okay, I'm going to scroll the map and see if I can find a Mononoke to collect. And of course, there are no Mononoke on the map, because what the game does not tell you is that you have to go into missions or just into evening flickathons and hope that the Mononoke you want show up. And I believe that the level of the town has an effect on that. So the better the environment for your town, or the more buildings you put into the town, the more variety of Mononoke will show up, which means you get more combinations of Mononoke, which gives you access to more environmental effects. And then eventually buildings, because you also can get populations to grow in their town. And then if you have enough grass and bug Mononoke in an environment, people will build homes there. And there's like a whole tally list of all the different building types you've got and how many buildings of the types you've got. And oh my god. And believe it or not, there apparently is like a battle concept that I never even dealt with because I was too busy killing time growing shit. And I think that's probably where the Beast Mononoke come in, unless that involves getting livestock, because I bet there's animals in farm life too. But basically, eventually something called Hazard Mononoke is going to show up. And what they do is they essentially fly around the map, and they ultimately negatively impact the environment. So you got to combine 2 Mononoke and flick at them to knock them off the screen. Maybe that's where the power stat comes in.
Maybe.
But you want to knock the hazard Mononoke away from the map. And that was the other thing I had to figure out, because the game didn't mention this to me either, but you're trying to collect happy orbs. That's the main goal of the game. So whenever you fulfill a request for a talisman, you get happy orbs, because Mononoke love happy orbs. I have yet to see what they do. All I know is when I complete missions, they give them to me. And that's about the gist of it.
No, gotta catch them all.
Yes, you do. Make everybody happy for no good reason. But it's a very simple game, yet there's a surprising amount of depth to it in the form of all the different Mononoke combinations you can fulfill and expand the town, clean it up. And in its own way, it becomes sort of customizable, because you put grass and trees where you want them to go, and then as a result, town houses will build up, and everybody's town will look somewhat different. It's kind of cool.
It looks cute as hell, too. So I guess the big question is, for $4, what's your thoughts?
I've spent $4 on less and enjoyed it less. So I think, honestly, if you're looking for something a little weird and different on your 3DS, pick it up. More so because of the fact that this game, I'm sure no one's talking about it. You mentioned it to me, I was like, what the fuck are you referring to? Mononoke? Princess Mononoke Forest? Which, now I think about it, maybe that's where the name comes from.
Maybe.
But basically, I think it's worth $4, especially as an out-of-left-field game. You like cute shit, you like flicking things at night, you like playing games that involve the environment, there you go. It's a solid purchase. I think it's worth it.
Cool. And even cooler is that it has a street pass in it. So if you pass by someone else who has a village, you could check theirs out.
Good luck with that. But hey, maybe this review will get enough sales out there that we'll come across some people's street pass in Mononoke Forest.
Hey, make sure you have that street pass active at MagFest, because you never know who you're going to run into there.
That is true, though. As you know, with MagFest, the challenge is, what of your gajillion games do you want to activate your 10 street passes for? Or is it 12? I don't even remember. Either way, it's
10.
Not enough. It's not a freaking enough for all the games that have Street Pass options on it now.
Very true. But next game to talk about is called SwapQuest, developed and published by Rebusmind. It released August 22nd on Xbox One, PS4, and Steam for $9.99. The kingdom of Aventana is under attack by a cloud of demons known as the Horde. Many legends tell of its destructive power and how it devours everything in reach. Will you become the hero Aventana needs? Can you find the magical sword that is said to be powerful enough to defeat the Horde? Pernell, are you the hero?
Hell no. But I try anyway, because you never know. Sometimes it's all about how you feel. If your heart is true and you're into the quest, you become the hero by default. And that's nothing wrong with that. But this game, first of all, it's a little bit of bias on my part, because I like a little game called Pipe Dream. I've always liked Pipe Dream.
Hell yeah, man.
And believe it or not, this was the second game I've played this week that has the Pipe Dream feel to it. So I was pretty giddy. I was like, hey, SwapQuest, a game that actually finally brings back thoughts of Pipe Dream. So I was onto it. And I honestly like it. I hope, maybe it's because I haven't done enough in the game, but I hope it gets a little bit faster as far as how the movement of the game works. So that might be to the detriment if you do, because you got to keep up with a lot of crap while you're playing it. So the overall idea behind this game is that it's an auto-scroller. Sometimes you're scrolling horizontal, sometimes you're scrolling vertically, but you're always scrolling. There's a poisonous guest, or the Horde is constantly chasing you as you play through the game, and the goal is to get from one end of the screen to the other. And on your way, you are doing so by taking different tiles with different road patterns on them, and you're laying them out to create a path for your character to walk and traverse. And during these travels, you'll come across different things. You'll come across treasure chests sometimes that, when you open up, they will puke gems everywhere, which drives me freaking bonkers, by the way. I just want to point that out. They puke gems, and based on where the gems land, it determines which blocks you want to start picking up to try to move into the path of your hero so they can collect the money that comes out of them. Sometimes health drops out of them too, which you will need, because another thing that you'll come across on the road are monsters, slimes, bats, whatever. And when you come across them, your hero has to walk up to them with the weapon that they have equipped and beat them to death. But it's more of like a back and forth sort of thing, like how RPGs kind of work, where until they die, they'll be doing damage to you too. So it's not there's no dodging in this game, so don't even try it. And as you kill them, sometimes they'll drop gems. Sometimes you'll come across like bushes and rocks and lakes, and all need to be touched with the clicker in order to make them, you guessed it, barf gems, which you will also collect on your journey. At the end of every level, you get access to a caravan, which will allow you to purchase upgrades to your character, whether they be weapons or armor or upgrades to whatever class you chose at the beginning of the game, each of which has different skills that help you on the journey, as well as different stat builds, which I honestly didn't even pay attention to. There was like an attack stat, a defense stat, a luck stat, and I think an intelligence stat. So, honestly, that's more so the game. There might be something. Oh, I forgot. On those levels that you choose, there's also 3 challenges you can fulfill during the level, which allows you to earn more gems. That's a gem. But that's pretty much the game. Honestly, I can't think of anything I might have missed, except for possibly boss encounters down the line. But what about you? What was your take on it?
I really dug it. Like you, I was a big fan of Pipe Dreams as a kid, and when I first saw pictures of it, I'm like, oh my god, it's a new Pipe Dreams. And then when I played it, I'm like, holy shit, it's Pipe Dreams RPG.
Mm-hmm.
With the walking along the paths to the random battles and then picking up gems and buying upgrades, and I thought it took the fun formula of Pipe Dreams and gave it a lot more longevity by adding RPG elements and actual progression to the game instead of solve this puzzle, move on. Move on.
Now, I think we do need to point out one thing, though. Since we are saying RPG qualities and RPG elements, we need to point out the fact that, yes, it does have those elements, but you're not getting this like a crazy... You're not going to go to the store and start comparing weapons and shit like, well, this sword does this and this does that. Because even though the weapons do have different properties, they're limited. So you won't be getting analysis paralysis while they're trying to determine what the outfit your character with. It's going to be a pretty simple upgrade system, which isn't a bad thing. It's just for folks who are looking for something crazy like that. Don't come in with a weird expectation because you're not going to get it.
Yeah, this isn't an RPG with Pipe Dream elements. This is Pipe Dream with RPG elements.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
And I think it works really, really well. I do agree that it moves a little bit slow. But when you're trying to figure out the right paths to take and then, move pieces around to get the gems and try to avoid this or get to that, I can understand why it moves at the speed it does. Cause I think if it was too fast, it would just be too overwhelming.
Maybe there's a hope that maybe it's like a new game plus or something we could unlock. So you think you're a badass, huh? Well, now this game scrolls faster. Like, all right, can my guy walk faster too? Yep. Good. Because, yeah, if he walked faster and the game scrolled faster, I think it would add it over. It would make it tougher, but I think you could match it in some way. No. But I agree with you though. I can definitely understand the why component too. So it's not necessarily a bad thing on their part. It's just I have ADHD and I want to get things done.
Very true. But for $10, what are your thoughts on this one?
I'd buy it if I missed Pipe Dream. Definitely a try it at least if you like puzzlers.
I agree. I think if you're a puzzler fan, I think this does enough new and enough different, especially in this age where you really don't see games like this come along, and it puts enough of a spin on it to be fresh and unique and really enjoyable. And I think $10 is a pretty good price for it. So I'd give it a buy it if you're a puzzle fan.
Oh, another thing too for some, because I know this actually is a thing for some folks. If you happen to have a kid who happens to be a little girl, you can be the prince or the princess. Mm-hmm. And they both have equivalent abilities, so there's no nerfing. There's no one is faster while the other one's stronger. It's just, hey, you want to be the girl? You can do that. You want to be the boy? You can do that too. And everyone wins. So one more cherry on top of the ice cream sundae there.
Indeed. And speaking of one mores, you got one more game to talk about tonight, and that is called Adventure Puzzle Blockle. Developed and published by Intense Company Limited. It released August 3rd on the Nintendo Switch for $7.99. Wow, you covered like all the platforms today.
Yeah, and they're all puzzle games, which I like also too. More of those need to be coming out.
Indeed. Go on an adventure to the mysterious Wonder Labyrinth with Kulu, just a regular cat trying to find his way, and the beautiful Arika, who has lost her memory. Rotate the world, avoid obstacles, climb steps, and make use of various features to clear each stage. A puzzle adventure that will put your head in a spin. Pernell, this, I guess, caps off your trilogy of puzzle games with interesting game titles. What is this one about?
This game is... I'll talk about the game first. So the game is essentially tilting, one of those tilt room puzzle games. So the idea is that you're dropped into a room and you're tasked with getting the cat character to the door. So the way this is done is the cat can walk around, and you can also tilt the screen in order to make everything on the screen shift. So when you tilt the screen, the cat will fall to the lowest point. If there are different like block objects, some block objects will stay in place, others will shift with the game. There are objects that will pop up on the puzzle sometimes, like such as a ball where you can roll across the ball, but it also functions like a droppable square. And there's also environmental hazards as well that will challenge you with the game, such as icy floors and possibly like spikes or things that can crush you. So the goal, as I mentioned earlier, is to find your way to the door with the cat character and get out of the level. But there are also little like challenges for each stage to get you a crown, which is like a full completion thing. What those crowns will earn you, I have no freaking clue. But I have still been trying to earn them. So, for example, there are a number of different criterions that will factor into, such as how many times you make the cat take a step, or how many times you roll a ball, or how many times you tilt the map, and how many seconds you take to beat the level. And I think more even unlock as you play as they start introducing new hazards. But there's a number of different ones, and each level requires 3. One of those requires will always be collect all the blue gems on the stage. So you have to collect all the blue gems, get to the exit, while also fulfilling the other 2 criterion that the game puts on you. So it can get pretty challenging, I think, to be honest with you. I can picture the game not being a huge difficult challenge just to beat, though. I can't talk. I got like halfway to 3/4 of the way through the game, but I can definitely say that getting all the challenge crowns will be quite a challenge for folks who are looking to be completists. But I gotta say 2 things. One, this is another example of, but it's for puzzle games, so I'm not gonna. But it's another example of pretty much a throwaway story where you pretty much feel compelled to just hit the skip button for every cinema scene. But the other thing is just how freaking hysterical the main character. Just, God, I know I'm a pervert. I don't care. I'm a grown man. But the main character is a girl with huge knockers, and the way she stands, like, I wouldn't even mind that so much because I play tons of games where that's the case. That's Japanesey. That's what they do nowadays. But when she's in her basic stance, her hand actually rests on her tit. Like, it's that hard to keep her hand up that she just has to rest it there. Like, who just sat there and thought, I'm going to draw a character who just rests her hand on her tit?
I just pulled up some screenshots, and oh my god, that is hilarious. The game has a T rating, I'm guessing pretty much just for the titties.
It has to, because the game itself is like a cute cat on blocks.
And it's nothing like hyper graphic or anything. If anyone's listening, they're like, "Oh, I can't believe there would be a film." It is T-rated. It's basically cleavage that you would see in a JRPG.
They just had to cover their bases because that one person would buy it with an E rating, like some like a Episcopalian would buy it. It's like, holy crap, Jesus Lord Christ, my baby has a breast on the screen. I can't do this. But
well, she's been blessed.
Pretty much. But I couldn't, every time they do a cinema scene, I'm just staring at it and go, who was drawing this character? He said, it would make a lot of sense if she just rested her hand on her tit while she was talking to a cat with shades, because that makes sense. No, it doesn't. Oh, Jesus. I can't even fathom that. And I can see them in the studio going, fun for the whole family. Just bring it all in. It's just, why? It makes no sense. But enough of the ridiculous busticle tangent. The game
enough
itself
of the titties.
Enough of the titties. How about the gameplay? Well, the game itself is honestly pretty fun too. I mean, we've all played. Well, I don't say we all have, but if you're a big fan of puzzle type games, I'm imagining you have played a game that involves tilting a room to get things done. But they're also not the most common, especially nowadays. So I feel like this definitely fills a niche of seeking puzzlers And as I mentioned to Joe before this call even kicked in, there was another puzzle game that came out recently called Pixel Links or Pixel
Lines.
It's probably Pixel Lines. There it is.
Pixel Lines DX, which we reviewed on our last episode, by the way. So if you didn't hear that, go back and check that one out.
You should. And hear all the reason why you should buy the hell out of it. But the point is, between Blockle and Pixel Lines, I was pretty satisfied with my stuff. And then, of course, recently the Mononoke Forest. So I think this also falls onto I would definitely grab it as a buy, to be perfectly honest, if you're into puzzle games. So.
Sounds good. I didn't even get to do the whole for $8. What do you think of this one?
Oh, I'm jumping on point. I know where this conversation is going. I want to drive. But it's legit. It's definitely worth it. I hope people buy it and try it, and I hope they all buy it and laugh at the anime titty.
Sounds good. Well, Pernell, thank you so much for covering these puzzle games for us, and I'm sure we'll have you back on soon.
Sounds great, sir. Thank you for having me.
All right, next up, we have a handful of Jackbox games to talk about on the Nintendo Switch, and we're bringing in our good friend Hex Martinez to talk about them. Hex, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, Joe.
Welcome back to the show. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has.
So
Thanks for having me, though.
It's always good having you on. You're awesome, good peoples. So it is good to have you on. It is good to have you covering some Jackbox goodness for us. You are talking about the Jackbox Party Pack 1 and 2, both developed and published by Jackbox Games. They released August 17th on a Nintendo Switch for $24.99 a piece. Which one do you want to start with?
Let's start with 1.
Might as well. Jackbox returns to the Nintendo Switch with the original party pack featuring the wacky fact-filled lie swatter, the racy as you want to be blank, fill in the blank word spud, the bizarre drawing game Drawful, the hilarious bluffing game Fibbage XL, and the legendary 2015 edition of You Don't Know Jack. Hex, tell us about Party Pack 1.
So to those who are not familiar with the You Don't Know Jack series, this is like one in a series of games that have been around since forever, I guess. I just came into this, sort of. I played one of the You Don't Know Jack games once, I think, ages ago. And it was really cool getting a chance to play these because I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And it doesn't work like any game I've played before. You use your phone or tablet or whatever device you connect to the Wi-Fi with, and you go to a website that, using a 4-digit code, you put in a nickname, and now you use your device to answer questions on a series of different games. So it's really cool. You get your own input device while you play it. And there's a bunch of different games on it. So there's Lice Water, which is basically like a true or false type of game where they give you some facts and people have to decide whether or not that's, true or wrong. And it's a lot of fun. Next, you got a game called Word Spud that's pretty much like hot potato with words. A word comes up and you have to add to it. And then it just keeps on going until the buzzer goes off. And then points are awarded. There's a game where you have to come up with the entertaining lie, Fibbage. And then there's the You Don't Know Jack 2015, which is a quiz party game show. And probably the best... this is where all the budget went, obviously, in this game, because it is the one with the best intros. It's got the best audio, the best music, the best questions, and it's like the host is on the entire time, which is really fun. He's a real jackass.
Well, given You Don't Know Jack was the namesake of the franchise when it came out, you could kind of understand why they put all their eggs into that basket. Like, I'm familiar with Drawful, I'm familiar with Fibbage because they got their own games, but even now, I don't remember Lie Swatter or Word Spud.
Yeah, you know what? They're not the best games on this thing. Is what it is. Like, Fibbage XL is pretty good. Word Spud is kind of fun, but You Don't Know Jack is where it's at.
As expected.
Yeah, for sure.
And then Drawful is pretty good too.
Yeah, Drawful's pretty fun. We didn't get to play that one as much, though. But we really did have a good time.
So what do you think are the highs and lows of Party Pack 1?
The highs and lows... one of the best things about this game, I'm gonna say is that, you know that feeling you get when you play a game like Apples to Apples and you realize that it's not so much rule based, but it's more about reading the room and the people that you're with.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes these games fun. Is depending on who you're with, the game can go in a completely different way. Depending on the sense of humor in the room, like people will write some really crazy answers, stuff you're not expecting. You'll get caught off guard and just lose it, and it's a lot of fun. When you lose, you're not even mad.
It's like the filthy dick jokes are going to work with one crowd, but they might not work with another crowd. So that's part of the fun of these games, is just trying to figure out the humor of everybody else you're playing with.
Exactly. I mean, if grandma's there and you feel ballsy enough to put something crazy, who knows, man? Grandma might vote for you. It's pretty great. So yeah, like, it's a lot of fun. I definitely love Party Pack 1 was really, really good.
Nice. So for $25, what's your verdict on Party Pack 1?
If you have a lot of friends, I think it's worth it, because when you have people over, it's never not fun to do this. There's a lot of what's really cool about this game is that it doesn't rely on cards either that you memorize after having played for a while. You kind of create the answers, it'll keep it from getting stale, I think. So I think it's, if you like You Don't Know Jack, it's worth it for You Don't Know Jack. Even with the 2 throwaway ones, like, I think it's worth it for the ones you get. It's a really good time that I think is worth the money for at least that experience for once or twice. If you can get 8 people together, it's worth it.
Do you know if there's anything unique with the Switch version of the game?
Not that I know of. I know that there's a version for like other mobile devices like iOS and Android, and they run pretty much the same way. In that you pay for the app, you go to the website, and you use the mobile device.
Nice.
As your answer tool.
I will say that games like You Don't Know Jack and just the Jackbox Party Packs in general really made me wish that the Switch had some kind of built-in streaming service on it. Because like if you fire those up on PlayStation or PC or on an Xbox, you could just like stream to Twitch or stream to Mixer and have random people join you online and just play it that way. Where unfortunately, it seems like unless you use some kind of capture device, the Switch doesn't really have that feature available.
Yeah, unless you're broadcasting like with another camera, like you bring up a really cool idea. Actually, you really could get people who can tune in remotely to play, which is really fun, I guess.
Yeah, I know we've done that on the show before with that, and then another game, Use Your Words, where we'll just start a game, start streaming it, have people join the chat room and join the game that way. And there's enough of a delay in the game, and like Twitch and Mixer, their actual built-in delays are short enough now that, it feels like you're playing in the same room still. It's just everyone's online and you can say all the racist stuff you want and no one will know it's you.
What a time to be alive.
And then Jackbox Party Pack 2, Jackbox returns to the Nintendo Switch with the second installment of the series, featuring the bomb-diffusing nail-biter Bomb Core, the Say Anything gut-busting Quiplash XL, the hilarious sound effect game Earwax, the absurd art auction game Bidiots, and the runaway hit Fibbage 2 with over 500 brand new questions. Hex, tell us about Party Pack 2.
So Party Pack 2 is a lot like the first one, obviously. This one looks like they had a little bit more time to polish off some of the other games. So Earwax is interesting. Earwax is a cool game, but they don't. The only problem. So they give you. There's a judge who chooses a phrase or scenario, and then the rest of the players have to pick 2 consecutive sound effects that will play, and I guess the funniest one wins. The only problem is you can't hear the sound effects before you choose them. They're just kind of written.
Yeah. And
you have to kind of go for it. But that one's fun despite not really being executed as well as it should have been. Fibbage is the one that they spent the most attention on. That one's the You Don't Know Jack of this version, which is really cool. It's the flashy one with all the animations. And let's see, we got Bidiots. This one's kind of a tough one. This one's the draw one, which I guess is the sequel to the draw game in the first one.
Yeah.
in this one, you draw pictures and you have to bid on them. And I didn't really get this one, I'll be honest with you. This was really crazy. It's an auction game.
Yeah, when I played that one a while back, when I first played that game, I thought Bidiots and Bomb Core were like the weak links of this one.
Yeah, Bomb Core looks very like lo-fi, like it's all 8-bit graphics. But I like the idea of a game that requires teamwork. If you've ever played, like, what was that Starship game that had like different buttons and people had different directions on each screen? That's how this works. Is, you know, there are different directions. People get individual directions on their devices, and they have to coordinate and find out who goes first, decipher the directions, and then, you know, defuse the bombs.
Yeah, I enjoyed Party Pack 2. I thought, like, the highs were higher and the lows felt kind of lower. Like, I don't know, Bidiots I didn't really get into. I know some streams that I would watch, like, people had a blast with it, but I don't know. I wasn't a fan of that one.
But our favorite game was Quiplash XL, for sure. Like, hands down, this was the one we had the most fun with, the one that had us on the ground laughing. And in this game, they come up with... They give you a question like the worst way to spell Mississippi, and then you have to come up with the best, wittiest answer. And, you know, that one, it just gave you a chance to be creative and just say funny shit. So it was like the best one.
What are some of the highlights from you playing?
There was a question about King Tut, how he had a person who was specifically hired to do what. And somebody said bathe his feet. Somebody said watch him jerk off. Like, we were... like everybody in the room was really... It was just too funny. Like, there were so many good answers that we had a hard time breathing and a hard time choosing the good answer. Which was really cool. So we like that one. Quiplash XL is worth it. Is the party game.
Nice.
Yeah,
so,
that was a good one.
Overall, for $25, what's your thoughts on Party Pack 2?
Party Pack 2, I think, is worth it just for Quiplash. I would choose Party Pack 2 over the first Party Pack if I had to pick one. I did enjoy Bomb Core. Quiplash is worth it just for that. And then Fibbage is another, like, high-quality game. Earwax is fun. Bidiots is kind of garbage. But 1 out of... was it 4 out of 5? Not bad.
Yeah,
you know,
that's an 80% success rate.
So yeah, I'll take that one over the other one. You know Jack is fun if you like the classic You Don't Know Jack style with the trivia where everybody's answering questions. But this one was a little more variety, I think.
Yeah. So you already answered my question about if you had to pick one, which one would you go with? Have you played the third one at all?
No, not yet.
Well, there's one that you'll have
to
check out down the road sometime.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I'm gonna, because I think it's worth it. Like, these games are fun, man. They're, like, really fun.
Yeah, if you've got friends over, I don't think you could ever go wrong with a Jackbox game.
Yeah, this is way better than Bloody Boobs, I gotta tell you. Yeah.
I forgot you did Bloody Boobs on the show.
Ask me which one I would choose.
Which one would you choose, Hex?
Well, boobs are pretty cool.
I totally forgot about... Oh my god, I forgot about Bloody Boobs.
I wonder if there have been any updates to that game. I should just go back and revisit that.
Memories.
Yeah, I'll never forget the time you did that to me. That was cool.
Hey, I warned you going in that you needed no shame for this game.
Yeah.
I linked you the page and everything, and you're like, well, I guess this is my life now.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're happier with these games than with the first one, huh?
Yeah, no, this is the second one was much better, in my opinion.
Nice. Sounds good. Well, Hex, thank you so much for covering the Jackbox games for us. It sounds like as long as you got friends, and I'm guessing if you already own the games, there's not really much reason to pick them up again, but if you don't have them, fucking buy them, right?
Yeah, pretty much. There's a spectator mode, I think, on the second one, where non-players can watch you guys play, I think, which is kind of cool. I don't know if the other ones have that. felt like mentioning.
I'm trying to think if the first one had. Is that the one with like how the audience could like vote on stuff too, right?
That's it. Yeah, that's
Nice.
it.
Yeah, that's fun in massive streams, like when the game already has like 8 people or whatever in it, and there's still like 40 more people hanging out in the chat who's like, I wanted to play. Well, then just vote on people and screw someone over in the end.
There you go. Democracy manifest.
Indeed. Well, again, thanks Hex for covering these. Any final words to wrap it up?
No, man. Thanks for having me on, Joe. This was a lot of fun. Love you guys.
All right, and finally, we have the game Book of Regrets, developed and published by Synodic Arc, one of them. It released August 22nd on PS4 for $4.99, previously available on iOS and Android. You wake up in a dark dungeon, you can't remember where you came from or why you're here. As soon as you stand up on your feet, you hear a frightening scream. You dash, hoping to avoid whatever it was. Your goal becomes evidently clear: escape this maddening place. Our friend Greg Middleton wrote in a review for that one, so we are going to check it out now. I will always remember the old text-based adventure books I used to read when I was younger. The moments of you run into an enemy, do you run away? Turn to page 43. Or stay and fight? Turn to page 22. These were great ways to create your own story and adventure. In the Book of Regrets, I really feel like this has reminded me of those times and ultimately delivers in what it sets out to achieve. You awaken a dark dungeon and you have to escape. On traveling between rooms and varied locations, you will come up against enemies and puzzles with multiple choices. Upon meeting the Angel of Death, he tells you have to prove yourself in order to make it back to your world. What's really good about this game, in the multiple playthroughs and choice you have as the player, my first go I died within about 15 minutes, and on my second I lasted just under an hour. It kept me interested enough to try different options and see where it takes me. I like the fact that there's an autosave feature between rooms, so you can easily go back to where you were and try a different choice. Or if you're like me, start from the beginning again. New story, new hero. A little odd was the difference in graphics between the backgrounds and the enemies and characters that appear. It makes me think there were 2 different artists at work on the title. Backgrounds look like they were ripped out of Duke Nukem 3D, were sharpened a bit, whereas the character models had better details and style to them. If you're into these types of games, they're text-based adventures, you'll probably find enjoyment out of the Book of Regrets. I did find this interesting and was playing it longer than I expected. Yes, it's not pretty for a PS4 game. Yes, it's a niche genre and doesn't seem to be very long. But with the multiple playthroughs and a cheap starting point of $4.99, I can't deny that this is a fun game for the price. You won't really find anything like this on the PSN store, and it's a real shame it's not on the handheld like the Vita or the Switch, because I feel it would be better suited for those platforms instead of a home console. Open this book and buy it. You'll hopefully not regret it, especially for those trophy hunters, because when a guide comes out, this is going to be one hell of an easy platinum. So thank you, Greg, for that, and those are the reviews for now. We're going to take one more quick break, and we're going to be back with our Spira interview on this massive double interview episode. Woo! So stick around. We'll be back. Music. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for hanging around. I am joined by two guests at this time, Emily McMillan, Joe Chen of Materia Collective. Welcome to the show. How are you two doing today?
Not bad. How are you doing?
Doing all right. It's one of those days, just the weather is being unfriendly. So if any of the listeners hear any thunder in the background, I'll try not to blow away. It's just maybe it's the eclipse and weather is just trying to normalize. I don't know what it is. It's crazy.
You might get superpowers tomorrow.
we had like baseball sized hail in the area a couple of days ago. It was crazy.
Oh wow. Did it hit like your car or anything?
Thankfully no. I don't know how our car didn't get damaged from it. But I'm not going to complain. So
Oh, that's lucky, yeah.
You two are from what, Texas?
Yes.
That's correct.
We're both from Texas.
I'm guessing you guys get some pretty fun weather down that way too, huh?
Yeah, well, we're going into hurricane season right now, so I think we've got a big tropical storm this Friday, supposedly.
Oh, man. Oh, that sounds fun. But anyway, you guys are here to talk about a new album that Materia Collective just released. Do you want to tell us why you're here and give us the sales pitch?
Yeah, so Materia Collective, we got together with them at the beginning of this year, and we partnered with Sebastian Wolf, who's the founder of the company, to plan and direct Spira, music from Final Fantasy X, which is a collection of 100 Final Fantasy X range tracks from the game. Which
is a lot of music, by the way.
It is. It's been it's been a massive project, a massive undertaking for sure.
I can only imagine 100 songs across 2 albums. It is daunting. When I saw the email from Jason and he mentioned the album, I was like, oh, a new album for Materia, 100 songs, good Lord. So I've gotten through the majority of it. I've found a couple of songs that I'm really enjoying. It is insane, the variety of music in this project.
Mm-hmm.
It
yeah,
feels
absolutely.
Like every song is a different genre.
Yeah, I mean, one of the great things about working with Materia Collective is that every musician comes from their, a totally separate, independent background. So some of them are big rock enthusiasts, some of them are big orchestral enthusiasts. You mentioned you spoke with Josh Barron earlier on in your podcast.
Yep.
He's a very big kind of orchestral, traditional acoustic composer. So just everyone who's involved in the album has come from a totally different background and experience when they arrange their track.
And just the variety blows my mind. My wife and I were listening to the album earlier while we were out shopping, and it went from a Western style song to opera to heavy metal to like dubstep to classical piano. Every single song was different, and it was fantastic. I'm like, wow, I probably never would have listened to something like this, but sandwiched in between 2 rock songs, it works really well. So give us the details of how you started up this project.
I'll let Joe talk about it for a little bit first.
Sure. So I guess the story of how Emily and I met is kind of relevant to this. Basically, we met in undergrad, and we were both musicians. So I play viola, Emily plays piano, and we ended up meeting up. And later on, we found out that we both like video games and video game music, and in particular, like we somehow both really liked the game and the music from Final Fantasy X. So we've known each other for many, many years, and after we joined Materia Collective, after a certain point, we were like, we haven't done a Final Fantasy X album yet, so we wanted to go ahead and kind of push Materia Collective to explore this soundtrack, because we've already covered 7 and 8, and we wanted to go ahead and give some love to one of the soundtracks and games that we really like.
Mm. And from my perspective, I think 10 is sometimes underrated as a soundtrack because it's very, very different from Final Fantasy 6 through 9. You've got 2 additional composers, you've got really different styles in the soundtrack. So when it's being covered, you usually get covers of the same couple of tracks over and over. So we really wanted to kind of give the opportunity to cover a lot more of the songs on the album than just, To Xanarkand or Sticky.net.
And that's not to say you didn't cover those songs. 'Cause those are definitely in there as well.
Those are absolutely covered on the soundtrack, yes.
What are some of the more underappreciated songs that you think don't get enough love that you guys gave some love to?
Well, okay, one of my favorite tracks, it's one of the least popular tracks on the original soundtrack, is the Cloister of Trials theme, which is, I mean, no one likes those sections, that section of the game. And the music is incredibly annoying. Like, I'll be the first to admit that. It just plays over and over while you're stuck in this one area. It's not very well written. So I was incredibly excited to see, actually 2 people took that track on our album, and one person made an arrangement sort of reminiscent of the Final Fantasy 15 soundtrack, and another person took the arrangement and did this sort of Russian Tetris version of the song. So they're incredibly different, but they both got, the track got a whole lot of attention, which I was really happy about.
What made you want to cover a song that annoyed you so much?
I mean, I like it. To me, it's always been catchy. But I mean, every time, I'm looking at videos of it online, people, are always responding about how much they can't stand that song or how annoying it gets. And that portion of the game is not well executed. So, it's easy to see why that song gets frustrating to so many people so quickly.
And also, I think internally, like, we kind of had this kind of fun challenge where we're like in the 10 soundtrack, there are a lot of songs that we like and a lot of songs that people don't like Emily was kind of alluding to. But what we wanted to do was like say, okay, I challenge you to for example, take the Shoe Puff song and turn it into something that's really, really interesting musically. And that's what one of the things that Damien Nguyen did when he arranged the Shoe Puff song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's turned into this much more beautiful kind of chamber music style track, whereas the original is, again, kind of bare, to put it politely.
I love some of the spins that are put on some of the songs as well. Like, even something as heavy as Otherworld, like there's a slower, like, relaxing version of the song on this album.
Yeah. Yeah, we were really delighted to see that one being proposed. I remember that was Jer Roque who did it with his wife, Natalie Klein. And they did this sort of lounge Broadway style twist on the song, which is just, it's so fun to listen to. And that is definitely one of the more popular songs on the soundtrack. They even have a concert version of it that the official Distant Worlds concert does on their tours. So to see someone take that song and then make it so different and just such a different listening experience, that's incredibly delightful for us to see and watch progress as it was completed.
And then for fans of the metal, there's a more traditional version of the song in there as well.
Yes, absolutely. So if you're going into that album looking for the original Otherworld, you will find a fittingly metal version of the track as well.
I think that was one of the first ones I tracked down, and I'm like, wow, this has some unique twists to the song, like in terms of tempo and everything else, and it was a really cool listen. I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So what are some of your favorites that you guys had covered on here?
Well,
Joe, what were some that you enjoyed? Yeah.
Well, I guess one that I really enjoyed was it was kind of when we actually assigned tracks, when we kind of assigned tracks to different people originally, we had some different proposals for Yuna's theme, and in the middle, because of obligations, some other people had to drop out, and we actually had someone step in, Fabian Fabreau and Michaela Noctegal. They did a really, really amazing version of Yuna's theme, which are like a duet, which are an automaton duet, where it kind of tells the story between Titus and Yuna, and we kind of rolled this into a whole video campaign where we were like, okay, automatons are really funny instruments, and we decided to kind of make this a video story and to kind of help promote the album. And if you haven't heard it, then I definitely recommend checking that track out.
I have definitely heard that song, and as soon as that one came on, I got in touch with our old co-host, Chris Huber, because he actually did a song a couple of years ago, a cover of the shop theme from Castle Crashers with an automaton, And I linked him the song. I'm like, dude, you have to listen to this song. He's like, holy shit, an automaton. What the hell? So we were pretty excited. I didn't get to take too many notes with the songs on the album, but the one Post-it note in front of me says Una Automaton. So that's one I definitely wanted to talk about, and you beat me to it.
Yeah, we were excited to get Michaela on it because she's incredibly talented with automatons. I mean, I've always seen them as kind of silly instruments, but she makes them sound incredibly good to listen to.
Like, how did they learn that? Like, how do you learn an automaton properly? I don't get it.
It does seem quite challenging.
I have one on my shelf, and I can't do shit with the thing. And then you're releasing an album with an automaton song on it that is beautiful to listen to. I'm like, how did that happen? Just blows my mind. It's fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's amazing the sound you can get out of them when you know what you're doing.
Which I don't know what I'm doing at all. So that explains a lot of that.
I'm in that boat.
I'm guessing you two did a couple of songs on the album as well?
We did one. We did one of the Hymns of the Faith, a small version of it. When it looked like we were going to have exactly 100 tracks, we really wanted to stick with that. So at one point, someone had dropped towards the end, and we had 99. So we just stepped up at the last minute and decided to put something on there that would be, kind of small and not obtrusive on the album. But it was fun to get a chance to arrange the track and put it on there.
Nice. What made you go with 100 songs?
I mean, both of our experience with Materia has been, we've been with the community since day one. The first album that they did was called Materia, and it was a tribute to Final Fantasy VII. And for us, it's always been an incredibly community-oriented group, more so than it is a publishing group, which it also does. But the people who continuously contribute arrangements and get to know the group members of Materia, to me, that's my favorite part of Materia Collective. So when we put out the idea of this album and had musicians come on board with it, our goal was to try and be as inclusive as possible. So we didn't let most of the performers do more than one track, so that as many people as possible would be able to have the opportunity to do a track. And it just so happens to have been close to 100.
And there are an insane amount of people on this album. Well, most of the time when you see albums that have a large number of tracks, it'll be like, okay, that guy again, that guy again, that guy again, that guy again. How many songs does this person have? And looking at the track list on this, it's like every single track is a different person. And it's impressive that you got so many people on board with this. Yeah,
again, that was hands down my favorite part of doing this album, just the fact that so many people came on board. When we first planned this project, I don't know about Joe, I didn't expect that many people to sign up for it. Again, we just finished Final Fantasy VII and then 8 in the main series, and those are, classic popular soundtracks, and I didn't know the kind of reception that 10 would have. So it was just so exciting to see so many people jump on board for it.
No love for 9 in there?
That was actually one of the things that we were worried about when we put out the proposal. We were worried that we were going to get a bunch of responses like, wait, what happened in 9? There's still time for 9 to happen. We just decided they just don't have to happen in order. But yes, we're both big fans of Final Fantasy 9 as well.
What about 11? There's an underappreciated soundtrack.
That's actually one of my lesser listened to soundtracks in the series. I'm a big fan of 14, and so I need to go back and listen through 11 at some point, but I haven't really sat down with it yet like I need to.
11 was like an on and off addiction for me for years, where I would play for a couple of months and then stop for a couple of months, and I kept going back over and over again. So that
Did
soundtrack,
you like the music to it as well?
Oh, I enjoyed it a lot, yeah. Granted, I didn't get to like some of the later game stuff in there. I would always like start new characters or start new jobs and just keep messing around in the beginning areas. I don't know. I have decision paralysis. It's like pick a job and stick with it forever. I can't do that.
That's absolutely how I play 14 right now. I'll do a character and then just hang around in the early areas because I just want to listen to the area themes.
Yeah, those opening areas, it's just such good music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they really are.
Good. So, 100 songs split up into 2 albums. How did you decide which songs would go to which set of 50 songs?
Well, we went through like a whole procedure. I actually met up with Emily in person, and we actually ended up writing all these different tracks on index cards. At that point, we already knew more or less what the songs would sound like. So we wrote them down on index cards, and it became like a huge puzzle of trying to figure out, okay, which album should it belong in, and then also what order did we want to put the tracks in, because that was also a really big challenge. So we kind of went a lot with like a clustering approach of looking at what are some songs that are in kind of similar styles, so that it can kind of organically translate from one more orchestral section into a more electronic section. We wanted to make sure those transitions were smooth, so that, because even between the 2 albums, even though we say that Besaid is a lot more acoustic, a lot more orchestral and overall, whereas Xanarkand is a lot more electronic, rock, experimental, there is still a lot of overlap and diversity in between. So we actually had to really work. We listened to the tracks over and over again for many, many hours in order to get not only the album separation, but also the track order.
That takes care of my next question of like, what's the difference between the 2? You're getting ahead of me here. You're getting ahead of me.
Well, I mean, I think Joe said it well, that even though Xanarkand is more electronic, rock, there is a lot of overlap. So there are some tracks on Xanarkand that are experimental but purely acoustic. There are some tracks that sound very traditional on Xanarkand, and on Besaid, vice versa. There are some definitely rock or electronic tracks there as well.
You mentioned experimental. I have heard some very unique songs across these albums. What do you think are the most experimental tracks on there, and why are they so experimental? Whether it's in composition or instruments used. I know we've already covered the automaton. I know I personally didn't expect to like drive to the store today and hear opera come on, so that kind of surprised me.
Well, when we announced the album and had musicians start signing up, one of the things that Joe and I wanted to do was encourage musicians to do something new with their tracks, and sort of push them out of their comfort zones a little bit. Even if that meant musicians new to Materia, their new challenge could just be arranging something for Materia. Part of the reason we wanted to do this was because Materia's at this point had multiple arranged albums released, and we didn't want the same types of tracks to be showing up on each one. So, at this point, we've had musicians who have contributed to 3, 4, or 5 albums. We didn't want it to be, oh, there's that person's trademark kind of track again. We really did want it to sound different.
Yeah, and one of the tracks that I thought was kind of experimental and interesting was on Xanarkand. Ian Lucky did a track that was 100% in Albed. It had lyrics, and it was kind of gypsy punk style, but all the lyrics were 100% in Albed. So I'm not going to attempt to say the title because that's also completely in Albed. But he went through this whole research process on like figuring out how to say the different syllables in the most accurate way possible, and he kind of became like our local Albed expert, so that anytime someone needed to have lyrics or anything related to like the Albed language, he kind of served as a resource for people.
I kind of want you to try saying the name.
It's like Nekjek Kadnagak Padpa.
How about you, Emily? You want to give it a shot?
No, it sounds like Joe got it.
Thanks.
But no, yeah, so he translated for a bunch of other people on the album, and it was really fun to see whenever someone else came up with lyrics in Albed, he would talk about how to, not only what they would sound like translated, but also how to pronounce them and what order to put things in. So it was pretty interesting to watch happen.
Sounds like a professional with the language.
Yeah, it was exciting to see that much dedication.
That's insane. Like, I couldn't even get all the letters playing through the game with, what are they, like manuals that you had to collect or something to translate everything?
Yeah, the Albed primers.
The primers, that's what they are.
I will say that I learned this year that there are websites that will automatically translate into and out of Albed. And I may or may not have used them a bit this year.
Nice. There were some dedicated people out there. It's like, what was it, in Futurama, where they hit a language in there and people deciphered it? It's just nuts how dedicated some people can be and to just figure all that stuff out.
And I mean, especially doing this album now, I mean, we're lucky to have all those kinds of resources, like websites like that. We used VGMDB a lot, video game music database, that had not only all the tracks on the album, but the different titles of the tracks, the officially versus unofficially translated versions, which composer composed each track, because that soundtrack was composed by 3 composers. So, I mean, just we did have a lot of tools already made for us to use while putting this album together.
Nice. That's really cool. It's like I said, it's crazy how fan bases out there are just so passionate about these games and about the music and about the stories in the games that they'll go and just completely translate languages, and it's crazy. Yeah. I am not that dedicated to anything. I am way too lazy.
You and me both.
Well, we had the announcement to do a few of the teaser announcements before we officially announced the album, but to do a few tweets in Albed. So we were definitely kind of going to those sites and figuring out what could we say that would look cool or something.
Did people see the tweets and just think you guys had a stroke?
I'm not sure. I tried to keep up with them, but I mean, I'll be honest. I've had a hard time keeping up with all the social media about this. But there were definite responses or retweets where people had written other Albed responses and things like that. So it was fun to see people kind of getting into it.
And this thing has been getting a lot of traction. I even saw Nerdist covered the release on Nerdist.com. That was really
we were incredibly lucky to get them. They offered to, or they agreed to do an exclusive release of one of our preview videos that we had put together. So they announced it for us essentially the Friday before it was released.
That's really cool. Getting big time with Nerdist.
Super exciting. I loved sharing the article and being like, my name's in this.
And then they go on to talk about all the genres and all the different tracks. We already mentioned that there's the 2 separate albums that you can get. If someone is new to Materia Collective, which one do you think is the better one to start with?
I think it just depends on what stylistically they're more interested in listening to. We kind of mentioned how there is a little bit of separation in styles between Besaid and Xanarkand, despite the amount of overlap. So I think, for example, if I were to come in as a classical musician and wanted to listen to a Materia Collective album for the first time, then probably the Besaid album is the more likely choice that you'd go to. If you're more of a rock musician or electronic, then you'll hear if you're into those styles a lot more, then you'll get more of what you want on the Xanarkand album. So I think it just depends on the musician, and that was one of the things that we tried to do when separating out the 2 albums.
Yeah, we were pretty regularly asking ourselves, what would someone who bought this album want to listen to, or what tracks could we surprise them with that would still fit within their aesthetic or whatever.
Right.
And so that was actually behind one of our decisions to split it into 2 albums, because selling 100 tracks is difficult to market. I mean, especially as you said, the styles are all over the place. So making them more, a little bit more manageable, was one of the things we wanted to do in splitting it in half.
Now, I know it's on Bandcamp. I saw on iTunes ranging anywhere from $12 an album to $15 an album. Is there an option out there to get them together?
There's, other than just buying them both separately, there's no deal or anything like that yet. We also have options on Google Play and Amazon, but Bandcamp and iTunes are our 2 kind of the 2 that we advertise most frequently.
Yeah, and then also love Spotify.
Yeah, I love Bandcamp, and I have an iPhone, so those are the 2 I recognize. So that's always helpful.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this was actually our first, I want to say, well, it's our first mainstream or main series Final Fantasy arranged album that we've been able to release on Bandcamp. So it was incredibly exciting to be able to get that storefront.
Is it a licensing thing that it's hard to get them on Bandcamp?
That is a question for Sebastian Wolf, who is the founder and director of Materia Collective.
I'm guessing you just let him take care of all the behind-the-scenes stuff and you're just focused on the music?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very big project. So he directed the first album, Materia, but since then, most of the albums have had either a second or a completely separate director or two directors. So that allows some people to be kind of taking care of the community and organizational aspect of the album. But then when it comes time, once we have all the master tracks and we're ready to send it into the storefronts, that's what Sebastian ends up taking care of.
Nice. So it just, like I said, lets you focus more on the music and not have to worry about all the administrative shenanigans, I guess.
Yeah. I have no idea how he does it, but he does it. So we're really grateful.
Again, it's dedication, and I'm just too lazy for that stuff. So we talked about how you have such a wide variety of musicians involved. Who were you most pleasantly surprised to see join the project? Like, who surprised you? It's like, oh, wow, they're joining us? That's awesome.
I really fangirled a lot when I saw that Julie Elvin was singing on our album. She is the lead vocalist. You'll hear her voice in games like Horizon Zero Dawn, World of Warcraft. She's done a bunch of really cool stuff. And I only found out that she was joining our project about halfway through. And I was just, when I saw her name on the track credit list, I emailed Rosin, who is the person who arranged the track that she's on, Battle for Spira, on the Xanarkin mix. And I was just like, wait, how did we get Julie? This is so exciting. And so, I mean, that was a big moment for me. I was super excited.
How about you, Joe?
Well, I guess we've had Dale North many times, but it's always great to see him come back and contribute to another Materia Collective album, because he always has a busy schedule. So it's great to have him go ahead and contribute his version of Suteki.net, which is Isn't It Wonderful, at the end of our Besaid album. So I thought that was really cool.
I was excited when I saw Dale on the project. I'm so happy he's doing more with music. I know he, spent a couple of years with Destructoid and doing journalism and stuff like that. I think he belongs with music. He's too damn good to do other stuff.
Yeah, well, we're not arguing. I mean, his track on the album is, it's so fun to listen to. It reminds me a lot of, in like 90s movies when you've got kind of instrumental versions of a theme playing during the movie, and then at the end the credits are rolling, and then you have like the 90s version of the song with some lead singer singing it. His arrangement reminds me so much of that, like in a really good way, like a very beautiful closing song. So that's actually why we had it close the Besaid album.
He just has such a sensual voice.
Mm.
Like, you look at him and you wouldn't expect that voice to come out of him. So who else were you just thrilled that they got involved?
Oh, I mean, we were lucky to have a big range of musicians. We got the Triforce Quartet. They didn't. Did they perform together on any of the tracks?
Well, they just contributed to, like, for example, Prelude on Xanarkin. Okay.
We had various musicians from that group perform on various tracks on the album. Right. And then they performed together, as Joe said, on Prelude. We also had Videri String Quartet, Dale North, as you said, Rosin, Revan, who both do really amazing, kind of stunning arrangements. So Rosin did Battle for Spira, the main battle theme of the game, which is on the Xanarkin mix, and Revan did Welcome to Luca, which is the second track on Besaid. And it was just really exciting to see the quality of arrangements coming out of them. We also had John Robert Matz, who's he's composed for a few games, but he's been on every single Materia album. And he's one of those people that you can absolutely count on him to deliver a quality arrangement when he's on board.
Was there anyone that you were hoping to get on board, but they were just too busy?
There were a few people. I'm not going to name names because I don't know, I don't want to advertise without their consent or whatever. But there were a few people who we had on board at the beginning and then had to drop for other commitments. So we were sad to lose them, but I'm thoroughly happy with how it turned out.
Mm-hmm.
And in the long run, you got Automaton on this thing. I still can't believe how good of a song there is with an Automaton. It just blows my mind.
You should. Yeah. One of my favorite tracks that Michaela did. It's on our YouTube channel, but the love theme from Final Fantasy IV, and she's got a version of that on Automaton, and it's just like, it's one of my. I love that track, but hearing it on Automaton, like, you expect it to sound silly, and it's just not. You take it so seriously, and you forget, like, wait, this is all Automaton.
Yeah, like she's actually a classical violinist by trade, so when you think about it, a lot of those kind of skills would translate well. But whenever I tried to pick up an automaton, even though I play a classical stringed instrument as well, it did not turn out quite as nicely. So really props to her for really like working a lot and getting her tone and everything sounding fantastic on that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine how much time it takes to kind of make that sound happen.
Yeah, I've messed around with mine. I mostly have it sitting on my shelf because it's adorable to look at, but just trying to play it, like, it hurts my brain how people could figure it out. I do want to hear that Final Fantasy IV song, though, so I'm going to need a link to that later on.
Oh, yeah, we'll send it over. It's so beautiful, but yes, it's all Automaton.
And I'll have to pass you guys the song my friend Chris did from Castle Crashers.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll just swap Automaton songs.
And go Automaton playlists.
So next Materia album is going to be all Automaton all the time. That might be a fun idea. How many Automaton players out there do you think you could wrangle up to do video game covers?
At least one. I mean, Joe actually got me an Automaton for my birthday a couple of years ago, and I'm ecstatic if I play something and somebody recognizes what I'm playing. Like, if I'm in the kind of rough range of the correct note, that's a success for me. So
your first
I would have to look hard to find.
Your first video of it was like the Lord of the Rings theme that you posted.
I posted, it was the theme from Lord of the Rings, and then someone said, it sounds like a bunch of dying cats or something. They weren't wrong.
Oh, man. What other insane instruments did people use on the album? Like, anything really just off the wall that you're like, does that instrument exist?
Well, we had one track use prepared piano. I'm not sure exactly how it was prepared for that track, but that was kind of cool because I don't think I've ever...
Yeah. So I do know a little bit of details on that. That one was Heavy Breathing 2 by Garrett Steele. And basically what I believe he had, the pianist, Ruby do, was she has a beautiful Steinway in her house that she recorded on. And what she ended up doing a lot was putting different screws and items on the strings of the piano itself so that it would get this kind of creepy vibe, because the song that he was covering is Creep from the original soundtrack. So he was able to, or by kind of tampering with the piano, it really gave this unique tone to it.
That's really cool. I'm going to have to track that song down and give it another listen.
Yeah, I would say another thing that I kind of like, and this is, I guess, in the same vein of the prepared piano, is, I guess, the way that instruments were used on this. Okay, Joe, you're going to have to remind me, what's that track that we really liked with the strings, the use of strings in it?
Moment of Truth by Steve Mellon, I think.
Yes, Moment of Truth. I always get Moment of Truth and Truth Revealed mixed up, even after... but Moment of Truth, where he had a bunch of string performers, so cello, violin, viola, but it was written in such a way that the strings sound incredibly harsh and atonal, and it's a very exciting track to listen to. It's something that on the original soundtrack I don't really pay much note to that song, but the arrangement was just so inventive, and it sounds so good in the end. So yeah, Moment of Truth by Steve Mellon. That was another kind of fantastic use of instruments that you don't normally get.
Nice. So if someone was on the fence about checking out this album and you had to tell them one song to listen to sell it, what do you think is the go-to song on this?
Joe?
So I'm basically making you pick a favorite. Pick your favorite child.
Can I pick one from each album?
Sure.
I can't pick a... Okay. I'll say, all right, two that really stand out to me on each album, and this has a little bit to do with watching the process of these tracks happen in addition to the end result. On the Besaid album, a really big highlight for me was Yuna and Seymour at the Disco, which is like a disco version of the final fight with Seymour. And it's very, again, it's very inventive. It's not what you're expecting. We had Bonnie Bogovich sing on that, and her voice is, amazing, and it goes all over the place. I mean, she's got a very, very big range that she uses on that track. But it was such a fun track to listen to. And so I've definitely been going back to that one a whole lot. On the Xanarkand album, one of the ones that stood out to me is A Fleeting Dream. Just because it's one of my favorite tracks on the original soundtrack, and it was arranged very, very well. So watching that track sort of form over the course of the project was definitely one of my favorites to see kind of slowly develop and get there. And the end result is really beautiful.
Nice.
Yeah.
What about you, Joe?
I guess for me, one of the ones I really liked on Xanarkand was Bravely Swinging by Thomas butchering names, I'm sorry, for Kresge. It is kind of like a swing jazz style that mixed a walking bass line with some really cool guitar and brass instrumentations and saxophone as well. So I really liked that one from Xanarkand. I guess from Besaid, one of the ones that I really liked was Echoes of the Ronso by Jeff Swingle. That one was the arrangement that was originally Servants of the North Pole, I think is what it's called. It's basically the Ronso song, the one that you hear on Mount Gagazet. And what I really like about that one is, in addition to the really beautiful strings and other instruments that you hear on it, there was a huge choir that they made a huge Ronso choir. And a huge Ronso choir that I thought sounded absolutely gorgeous. There was a whole bunch of people that contributed vocals to that. So I thought that was one really cool way that a lot of people, instrumentalists and vocalists, got to get together on the Besaid album.
Yeah, that track is absolutely beautiful. It's a really big highlight of the album for sure.
Nice. And I noticed there's a lot of vocal stuff on this album as well, which is really cool.
Yeah, there was actually more than usual. As far as I've seen on past Materia albums, we definitely have a lot more vocal tracks and like songs than there normally are on Materia albums. So that was very fun to see happen.
That's really cool. Oh, man. So what other games do you guys like playing? When you're not playing Final Fantasy X or arranging music from Final Fantasy X, what else are you playing? What do you enjoy?
Well, for me, I'm 90% of the time replaying Skyrim. I love that. And I mean, I'll stop playing for a few months and then kind of find an old save file and pick it back up again and then be lost in it for the next few months. So I'm a huge fan of that. I also play Final Fantasy XIV, and I'm enjoying Horizon Zero Dawn a whole lot. That's a fantastic game. One of my favorites that's come out in the past few years.
Yeah, that one seemed to take off a lot.
Yeah, I was surprised by how much I liked it. I expected to enjoy it, but it was so much better than I thought it would be, and there was a lot of quality in the game that I feel like I haven't seen in a lot of recent games. It seemed to be that there was a lot of care taken with, the dialogue, the storyline, the characters, the design, the soundtrack, which I really appreciated when I was playing it.
Nice. What about you, Joe? What are you playing?
Well, I guess the biggest series that I'm a fan of, in addition to Final Fantasy, would be the Xenoblade Chronicles series. So, I've been following the Xeno series since Xenosaga, Xenogears, and all that. And I've been really enjoying playing Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii and the Wii U. Super excited about the next Xenoblade Chronicles 2 game that's coming out, and they just have a really the soundtrack in addition to the games are also really, really fantastic. I'm excited to see what's coming next from Nintendo from that front.
Do you think Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is actually going to launch this year, or do you think it's going to get delayed?
My heart is hoping that it gets launched this year, but realistically, it'll probably get delayed.
Do you have your Switch ready to go?
Yes, actually, the main reason I bought the Switch, in addition to Zelda Breath of the Wild, was to prepare for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So I do have one right now.
Nice. What about you, Emily? Do you have a Switch?
No, I'm still stuck with the U for now. And I meant to get Breath of the Wild when it came out earlier this year, but we had so many good games come out at the beginning of the year that I just never got around to it. And it seems like a big time commitment, so I need to wait until I have 70 hours to set aside.
You just said you play Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah,
you're talking about a time commitment.
Yeah, well, time commitment on top of all those other things. I mean, I remember Breath of the Wild came out around the same time as Persona 5, I think, or within a few months of each other. And neither of those had been games that I was planning on getting until after they came out, and I heard really good things about them. So I played Persona, and that just sucked up like 100 hours right there. So, I mean, it's like there have been a bunch of fantastic games that have come out, but they're very long. So, but yes, 14 is, I don't have an excuse.
Yeah, beginning of the year was pretty crazy with game releases between Horizon and Breath of the Wild, Persona. It's been a crazy year for games.
Yeah, it's been really exciting to see everything come out and people responding so positively. Honestly, I wasn't crazy about last year's releases, so it was great to kind of start off the year on that kind of note.
Yeah, Sony, they just absolutely nailed it at the beginning of the year. So I'm eager to see what else they bring out through the rest of the year. You say you're a Skyrim fan. You don't have a Switch for the Switch version of Skyrim? You don't have Skyrim on the go?
No, I've sent, like, Bethesda's gotten so much of my money already. I mean, I've got like multiple Skyrim. So I do PlayStation like 90% of the time. So I've gotten, the different versions of Skyrim, Oblivion, and then all the Dishonored stuff that's come out of, Doom. So they can handle me not getting the Switch version, I think.
Yeah, but those versions of Skyrim, they don't have Nintendo items in it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm still getting over the mods. I never played Skyrim on PC, and I know that's like, illegal in some places or something. But I'm just now getting used to the mods that you can do on the PS4. So I'm not prepared for the Nintendo stuff in the game just yet. Still need to get over like what actually exists in the normal versions.
It's okay. I haven't played it on Steam either. I'm a console gamer through and through. So.
Yep. So I have everything on my PS4.
You are welcomed here, being a console person.
Yay!
Yay.
Oh, man. So what else would you like to talk about from the album? Figure if there's something you want to discuss.
Yeah. From my perspective, I mean, I'll just say that putting the album together, I mean, this is the first time that either of us has done anything of this magnitude at all. So, I mean, it really, really was a learning process as we went. There were a lot of, mistakes that we made. There were a lot of things that we were kind of figuring out as we went along. One of the things that we're doing right now as we're wrapping up the album is getting feedback from people about what could go differently next time Materia does an album, so that whoever the next producer is can pick that up and kind of learn from what we did. And also that, as we were directing, we were definitely learning a lot from the people who had directed the previous Materia album. So, it's a big process, and there's just, there's a lot of things to manage as you go.
What kind of feedback have you gotten?
A lot of stuff. We've gotten, one of my favorite suggestions has been, because there are so many musicians involved, one of the struggles that we have is figuring out how everyone can advertise what instruments they play. So when someone comes in and says, okay, I want to do a, string quartet version of this, how do you find someone who plays violin, viola, cello? So what we did was we actually came up with a sort of spreadsheet where people could enter their name, what they played, would they be willing to turn music around on a short or long time frame, and so on. So we've gotten a lot of really good suggestions for how to alter that process so that it's easier for people looking for instrumentalists to find people that they're looking for. And it's easier for instrumentalists to advertise themselves in an effective way within the group.
Nice. So what is next? Like, are you just going to take a break and relax, or are you eyeing up another project that you want to work on?
I mean, right now I'm just focusing on wrapping up the album. With the minute the album's released, there's a few distribution issues that we need to work out, some misspellings and stuff like that on storefronts. And then also just sort of seeing the response of the album. I mean, it's been so rewarding. I was beyond thrilled at how I saw people responding to the albums, at the number of articles I saw or people on Twitter that I don't know getting excited about this album. So right now I'm just enjoying it. Whether or not something happens down the road, that, I guess that's not what I'm thinking about just now.
What about you, Joe? What's next with you?
Well, I guess I am looking forward to seeing what else Materia produces. Like, obviously, this is not going to be the end of Materia Collective. They're going to definitely be doing future albums and so on, and other projects as well. So I'm curious to see what other people do and how they take what we've done and kind of build on it. Like, I think that's something that people, like, as we go from one album to the next, we've been building on what our predecessors have learned and passed on to us. So I'm looking forward to seeing what other people do with what we've learned.
Yeah, I'll also say Joe is a lot more of a performer than I am. So he plays viola, and he's been on a lot of the past albums. So, when it comes time to future albums, I know you're definitely still going to be involved from that perspective.
Right.
Like, how does it go from here? Like, where does Materia go from here? You just released an album with 100 songs. Like, do you go for 1,000 next?
Well, if you say it, people will start thinking about it. So
100 songs, 6 hours of music. That is just insane.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, Materia also does its fair share of smaller range albums. So it will, it's distributed albums. There was a small Skyrim arranged album that came out a while back. Of course, I was excited about that. But they did a BioShock one last year. Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. So in between the kind of really big Final Fantasy installments, it's absolutely done kind of smaller arranged albums on the side. Sometimes they're with the whole community, like the BioShock album was. Sometimes the Skyrim one was one or two musicians from Materia putting it out on their own with help from Materia. So it doesn't, Materia Collective isn't releasing successively larger albums each time. That's not to say there won't be a big Final Fantasy IX sometime in the future.
Is that a hint?
That's a hint about people wanting to do that within the group.
If you were to pick, if you were able to decide what game was next that you really want to cover, what would it be?
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to think about that, Joe.
Well, it'll never happen because of licensing issues, but I would, like I said, I love the Xenoblade Chronicles music. I would love to have a huge album on that, but there are some licensing problems that would probably never let that happen.
Don't let your dreams be dreams, Joe. Get Sebastian on it. He'll figure it out.
Yeah, I like the other Final Fantasy games in the series, so I'd definitely be excited for 9. I love that soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
I also really enjoyed the Persona 5 soundtrack, and again, I really like Final Fantasy 14. For me, it's sort of hard to conceptualize arranged albums of soundtracks like that because they are recent or modern enough that I sometimes really struggle to see how to improve on an arrangement or what to do with it that hasn't already been done. When it's done with instrumentation that's very modern, when they're using consoles that have all the resources, you can use a full orchestra already. So one of the reasons I like doing something like 10 or previous Final Fantasy games is that there were definite limitations to the sounds you could have on those soundtracks. So for me, and again, I'm not a serious musician myself, it's harder for me to kind of conceptualize what arrangements of more modern or recent games would sound like sometimes.
Makes sense. Yeah, I'm a fan of the older stuff myself. It's just you needed more imagination with the older songs. Today, everything is just spelled out for you. And back then, you needed blips and bloops to just make something magical and unique.
Yeah, and I mean, I absolutely love listening to those old soundtracks, but I also get so excited, you know, if I see a theme I love from Final Fantasy VI arranged really beautifully on piano, it's like, oh my God, there's this beautiful sound that could never have happened when the game, you know, came out. Whereas with something, again, more recent, like you said, it's spelled out for you already. So you're pushed a lot more to really use your imagination and creativity to come up with an arrangement.
Very true. I'm still hoping that Materia is going to cover Earthbound sometime.
Oh, yes, that's such a good soundtrack.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people would love that.
I know a lot of people in the group really like that soundtrack.
That's my hopes. I'm waiting for someone out there to do a better Earthbound project than Bound Together. But, you know, that was my project, my one project in life, so I have to love Bound Together.
When did you do that one?
Oh, God, over 10 years ago, something like that.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Dale North
Where
was on that one.
Where would we find it?
I'm not sure where it's available now. I know I have it on my own personal site, joecam.net / is it just /Earthbound? Now I have to look it up. It's so
we
old.
can do a little research after this.
Yes, joecam.net /bound together. So that was my project from ages ago. And I still have people telling me that they enjoy it. So, yeah, I want someone to beat Bound Together. I know the bad dudes tried with the psychokinetic and good stuff. I don't know. I think mine's better. So.
I mean, I think, you know, hearing people say, you know, I really appreciate the attention you gave to the soundtrack with your project. I mean, that's such a good feeling. So it's hard to talk about, like, beating a project because, you know, yeah, you could do a new one with more arrangements or different types of arrangements or something. But the fact that you did it 10 years ago when creating projects like that was still relatively new. I mean, the purpose of it and the spirit of it was much, much different.
Indeed. That was back in the days when OC Remix and VG Mix were still competing with each other. So that's how old that one was. Although it's still fun when people tell me that Bound Together is their favorite OC Remix project when it's not an OC Remix project. So that makes me smile.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of different types of projects out there for, you know, retro games like that.
What style of music is your favorite to either have covered or just to listen to on your own?
My favorite thing to listen to is just something that I haven't heard before. I remember, actually, speaking of OCR, one of my absolute favorite arrangements is their Final Fantasy VI collection of arrangements. I think it's called Balance and Ruin. They have a version of the opera from that game. And I don't remember who did. I want to say Jake Kaufman and someone else. I could be wrong. But they did this sort of rock opera version of the opera theme, and it's just absolutely one of my favorite tracks because it's sort of inspired by Bohemian Rhapsody, I guess. But when I listened to it, it was so unexpected and different and good. I really, really enjoyed it. So my favorite types of music, again, are just things that I haven't heard before when people do an arrangement. Like, oh, I never would have thought of that.
And Jake's just insane the way it is, so...
Yeah. I mean, it really comes through in his track, you know, in the best possible way.
It is insane what kind of talent that man has.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about you, Joe? What kind of music do you enjoy?
Well, I guess I kind of draw towards the really like kind of beautiful vocal orchestral styles. So those are a lot of the soundtracks that I kind of draw to. Also, kind of tango style I really enjoy as well. So
nice. You don't hear many people say that their favorite is tango, so that's cool to hear.
Yeah. It wasn't really like, it's not really something that you hear a lot, so it ended up being that, like, my friend showed me some really cool like tango style tracks, then like, she was just like, oh, here's the rest of the album for you to go ahead and listen to.
So clearly what we need next is a tango song with an automaton.
that would be goals, yes.
Tango-tomaton.
Album. Yeah, we've already got a title.
Tango-tomaton album of Earthbound music. That is Materia Project's next album. We figured it out.
You've cracked the code.
I try. I do what I can on the show. Anyway, I know we've been chatting for quite a while. Was there anything else that you want to discuss before we wrap things up?
I think that's it for me. I mean, I really enjoyed getting the opportunity to showcase this album that we've been working for a long time on, and a lot of musicians have been working for a long time on. So it's so great to finally be able to talk about it and to advertise it and to, talk about how much we love it, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And then also that, like, I also feel really humbled to, like, kind of be a producer of this album, that it's really all the musicians who created these tracks that are what makes this album so special. We end up, like, looking good because we're the producers, but it's really because they put in all this hard work into the tracks, and if they didn't do that, then this album would not be what it is today.
Mm-hmm.
Very true. Well, for everyone out there, give us a final sales pitch. Where could we get it? How much is it? Give us all the info.
Spira music from Final Fantasy X is available on Bandcamp for, I want to say, $12 and iTunes for $15. That's per album. So you can get the Besaid mix or the Xanarkin mix for that amount. It's also available on Google Play and Amazon and Spotify.
And where can people keep up to date with you?
MateriaCollective.com is the Materia Collective website, so you can keep track of arranged albums there, in addition to original soundtracks that Materia does release as well.
Cool. And what about you? Like, you directly? You Emily McMillan and Joe, like, where can we keep up to date with you and what you're doing and what you're working on?
Well, I guess I'm on Twitter. As I've been on Twitter for a few years. I've been, like, trying really hard to use it more than I did. My Twitter is EmilyM7912.
Yep, and my Twitter handle is AnimeVivi, which is also the same as my YouTube handle, so I drop Viola covers there.
Nice. I will have to include a link in the show notes so that people can check you out and check out your videos.
Great, thanks.
Well, Joe and Emily, thank you so much for coming on the show and chatting with us. I feel so bad that I haven't been able to talk more specifically about songs on there. There's just so goddamn many.
No, I mean, it's a whole lot to get through, and again, we really appreciate being able to talk about it and to share all the work that's gone into it from so many different people.
I have never been so intimidated by an album before than to just look at the list of songs. It is. I applaud you for how much work and time has had to have gone into this, for the number of songs, the quality of the songs, quality of the albums in general. It's just impressive. It's impressive. It is insane.
Well, thank you, and we'll pass that along to the musicians as well,
and magicians.
And the magicians. Yeah.
Well, again, thank you so much for joining. We're going to play a couple of songs to wind up the show. Joe, Emily, do you have any final words to end the show?
Just thank you so much for having us on. We really enjoyed being able to talk about it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Bye.